subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Everyone in his family. But Snape looked at Harry, and his expression twisted for a moment. He really looked like James Potter. Looking at that face, Snape felt that his endurance was at risk. He decisively looked away and looked at Ian beside Harry. Touching the handsome little face with red hair and green eyes, Snape's eyes softened instantly, like the spring breeze in March, warm and gentle. Very good. From now on, the seats for the four of you in the potion class will be fixed in the first row, Snape said gently. And when he said the second half of the sentence, he deliberately glanced at Harry, and his eyes instantly became cold. I don't want some people to disturb the excellent students in the front row. Howdy. Harry looked up with a confused look on his face and looked at Ian on the left. Ian shrugged at him, his eyes full of helplessness. Harry looked at Hermione again, and the little witch gave him a helpless smile. Harry finally looked at Ronald beside him, and the other side gave him a look that said, "May the best come to you." Howdy. He knew that Professor Snape was talking about him, and he just needed to name him. Chapter 24. Ian is in a dilemma. After arranging the seats for the four people, Snape began the class. You are here to learn the precise science and strict craftsmanship of potion preparation. Snape began to speak. His voice was almost slightly higher than a whisper, but every word was heard clearly. Since there is no foolish waving of wands here, many of you will not believe that this is magic. I don't expect you to truly appreciate the beauty of the simmering pot with white smoke and bursts of fragrance. You will not truly understand the magical power of the liquid flowing into people's veins, making people excited and confused. I can teach you how to improve your reputation, brew glory, and even prevent death. But there must be one thing. That is, you're not the kind of idiots I often meet. When he said the last sentence, Snape glanced at Harry again. His eyes were cold. Howdy. He really screwed up. Ian looked at Harry sympathetically and silently lit a candle for him in his heart. This is just the beginning. Snape's storm will come soon. I hope Harry can withstand the venom of the Snake King. Mr. Harry Potter, Snape shouted suddenly. Harry shuddered and stood up suddenly. Yes, yes. What will I get if I add narcissus root powder to wormwood infusion? Snape asked. Harry didn't even have time to open a book. How could he know this? He swallowed and replied in a low voice. I don't know, Professor. Tisk tisk. Snape shook his head with disgust and said in an exaggerated tone, It seems that fame doesn't mean everything. Hermione wanted to raise her hand. She secretly glanced at Ian beside her, remembered the other party's advice, and finally put down her hand. Let's try again. Snape said sarcastically. Potter, tell me, where can I find Bezoar? I don't know, Professor. Harry answered honestly. He lowered his head silently, not daring to look at Snape's eyes. Poor. Snape tapped the table with the quill in his hand. Then tell me, what is the difference between aconitum naviculatum and aconitum camigasum? This time, Harry gave up and answered loudly. I don't know, Professor. I don't know. Snape said softly, his eyes like a cold, venomous snake, entwined with Harry. It seems that you haven't learned anything in the 2 months since you received the admission letter, Mr. Potter. Gryffindor deducts 10 points, because a big shot can't even do pre-class preparation. Snape stared at Harry sinisterly. What? Mr. Harry Potter, entering the magic world and becoming a big celebrity. The boy who lived makes you complacent to this extent. Harry pursed his lips. He clenched the book in his hand and answered loudly. No, Professor. Oh, then why don't you even open the book? Snape mocked. You don't want to learn at all, don't you, Mr. Potter? Harry opened his mouth. He wanted to explain something, but in the end he could only lower his head and whispered, No, Professor. Snape sneered and turned to look at Ian in the first row. Mr. Ian Potter, you answer these 3 questions. Ian stood up. He looked into Snape's eyes and answered clearly and accurately. Professor, adding narcissus root powder to wormwood infusion will produce a very effective sleeping pill. People call it the water of life and death. Bezoar can be found in the stomach of a cow. It has a very strong detoxifying effect. Bottle-shaped aconitum and wolfsbane aconitum are collectively called aconitum. Boat-shaped aconitum blooms purple flowers, while wolfsbane aconitum blooms blue flowers. The latter is highly toxic. Ian finished speaking and looked at Snape with a complicated expression. Unlike Harry, who knew nothing, Ian clearly understood the hidden meanings behind these three questions. Their mother, Lily. The flower language of Lily is the same as daffodil. My regret will accompany you to the grave. Wormwood represents absence and sorrow. The first question spoke of Snape's own painful love. Visor is an antidote, and following the painful love above, Snape asked here how to relieve my pain. Finally, the flower language of wolfsbane is to live for love plus tenacity plus heroism. Snape asked these three questions to express his regret for Lily's death to the two brothers. I am heartbroken by your mother's death. Snape was stunned by Ian's eyes, and he looked away unaccustomedly. Very good. Mr. Ian Potter is different from your arrogant brother. He is preparing for the exam seriously. Snape paused and added, Slytherin gets 10 points as a reward for Mr. Ian Potter's excellence. Ian nodded slightly. Thank you, Professor. It seems that our other savior is much more humble. Snape glanced at Harry and raised his mouth sarcastically. Mr. Harry Potter, maybe you should learn more from your brother. Instead of being proud and complacent, thinking that you are the savior, and that you can be solved once and for all by entering the magic world. Harry pursed his lips and whispered, I know, Professor. Huh. Snape snorted coldly from his nose. He turned and looked at other students. What are you doing? Why don't you write down Mr. Potter's answer? There was a rustling sound in the classroom, and students picked up quills and wrote on parchment. Snape looked at the well-behaved Ian, and his expression eased a little. Okay, let's continue the class. He turned around and wrote a long list of potion formulas on the blackboard, saying as he wrote, Today we're going to learn about the potion for treating scabies. Which student can tell me what is the most important thing in brewing this potion? Hermione raised her hand high. She couldn't wait to answer Snape's question and add back the 10 points Harry lost. Then, Miss Granger will answer this question. Snape nodded and motioned Hermione to stand up and answer the question. It's the temperature of the crucible, Professor. Hermione stood up, looked into Snape's eyes, and answered loudly. The most critical step in brewing the potion to treat scabies is to control the temperature of the crucible. It can't be too high or too low. Correct answer, Gryffindor +1. Snape glanced at Ian beside Hermione and changed his words. Gryffindor +5 points. Hermione smiled brightly when she heard the extra points. She sat down and squeezed Ian's hand slightly. She earned back half of the points Harry lost. Ian shook Hermione's hand back and smiled at her. Snape looked at Ian and Hermione's little gestures, frowned, but said nothing in the end. Forget it. After all, they're childhood sweethearts, and this little gesture is nothing. Young people should still cultivate more feelings, especially in two different colleges. Snape convinced himself in his heart and waved his hand. Okay, let's start brewing potions now in groups of 2. You can form teams freely. The students began to move and look for their partners. Ian/Potter, let's form a group. Hermione and Cassandra looked at Ian at the same time, and they said in unison. Ian was stunned. He didn't expect that he would be so popular. Cassandra and Hermione looked at each other, and the air seemed to be filled with crackling sparks. Ian, we are both Slytherin prefects, so we can set an example for other students. Cassandra spoke first. She looked into Ian's eyes, with a threatening tone in her tone. Hermione heard Cassandra's words. She straightened her back and said, Ian, I need you very much. Ian was caught in the middle, and he was in a dilemma. He looked at Cassandra and then at Hermione, not knowing who to agree to. Chapter 25. Magic Potion for Treating Scabies. Draco and I are in a team. Ian quickly pointed at Draco beside him, wanting to escape from the Shura field. We agreed to brew potions together before. Draco didn't expect Ian to suddenly mention him. He was stunned for a moment, but after meeting Ian's gaze, he quickly reacted, yes. Ian and I agreed to brew potions together before. Cassandra and Hermione frowned at the same time when they heard Ian's words. Potter, I don't know them well. Cassandra wrinkled her nose, implying that she can't team up with others. Miss Parkinson and Miss Greengrass. You don't know them well either? Ian silently mentioned two ladies from the same Slytherin pureblood family as Cassandra. Cassandra was choked and glared at Ian. The professor said we should work in pairs. They already have two people. Then, actually you can work with Hermione. Ian blinked and pointed at Hermione. You two are both very smart, and you are both girls, so it is easy to communicate. Cassandra and Hermione were both stunned. They didn't expect Ian to make this suggestion. Who wants to work with her? Cassandra and Hermione refused in unison. Ian heard what they said and spread his hands helplessly. What do you say? Cassandra and Hermione looked at each other, and they saw the look of disgust in each other's eyes. But the potion class was still going on, and they couldn't keep deadlocking. Forget it, I'll team up with you. Cassandra took a deep breath and walked to Hermione. Miss Granger, we should be able to work together well, right? Hermione looked at Ian, then looked at Cassandra standing next to her, and finally nodded. Of course, Miss Volley, we can make potions together. Ian was completely relieved to see that Cassandra and Hermione finally reached an agreement, and turned to look at Draco. Draco, let's start too. Draco nodded and started to make potions with Ian. Ian patted Draco on the shoulder and whispered, Good brother, thanks to you for saving me just now. Draco winked at Ian. Hey Ian, Cassandra and Hermione, who do you like? Ian was startled by Draco's words, and he almost threw the herbs in his hand away. Don't talk nonsense. Ian glared at Draco. Cassandra and I are just friends. Draco shrugged, looking unconvinced. Just friends? Cassandra almost quarreled with Hermione just to be in the same group with you. Ian was speechless by Draco's retort. He opened his mouth, not knowing how to answer. Okay, let's make the potion quickly. The professor is still watching. Ian quickly changed the subject. He picked up the herbs at hand and started to process them. Draco saw that Ian was unwilling to say more and did not continue to ask questions. He picked up the herbs and started to make the potion with Ian. The two cooperated tacitly and soon made the potion. Snape walked past them and looked down at the potion they had brewed. Very good. Snape's eyes lit up. Which of you two thought of grinding slug mucus and snake tooth powder together? It was Ian. Draco pointed at Ian beside him. He said that the medicinal properties of these two herbs complement each other. Grinding them together can better exert their medicinal effects. Snape looked at Ian as if he was looking at some rare treasure. Genius idea. Snape praised generously. You understand the brewing of potions in all aspects. Slytherin plus 20 points. What a great talent for potions. Lily's child indeed. Ian was a little embarrassed by Snape's praise. He touched his nose. Thank you, Professor. You should be proud of yourself. Snape looked into Ian's eyes, his tone full of admiration. You are better than many seventh-year students, Ian. Ian was about to say something when he heard a loud bang, not far away, as if someone's crucible exploded. Ian looked over subconsciously. Neville had overturned the crucible. Neville was soaked in potion, and his arms and legs were covered with red and swollen boils, and he screamed in pain. The potion was originally used to treat scabies, but somehow Neville made it into a potion for making scabies. Snape's face suddenly sank. He turned to look in the direction of the sound and walked over angrily. Ian and Draco looked at each other and followed tacitly. Idiot! Snape roared, waving his wand to sweep away the potion spilled on the ground. Seamus Finnegan. Neville Longbottom. Are you brewing potions? Snape looked at the messy operating table in front of him, his face terribly gloomy. You almost blew up the classroom. Professor, yes, I'm sorry. Neville sobbed and cried. I didn't mean to. Longbottom, I think you probably put the porcupine quills in without taking the crucible away from the fire, right? Professor Snape said sarcastically. Professor. Ian came over with a freshly brewed potion. Neville's left arm seems to be injured. Draco and I have prepared a potion to treat scabies. You can apply it to Neville first. Snape looked at Neville with a gloomy face. When he saw the red and swollen scabies on his exposed left arm, the Snake King nodded. For Mr. Potter's helpfulness, Slytherin will get 10 points. The potion made by Mr. Potter and Mr. Malfoy is the best today, Slytherin will get 20 points. Ian handed the potion to Neville. This is a potion for treating scabies, a special potion for treating pustules, measles, boils, and other symptoms of lymphotuberculosis. Apply it on your wound, and it will heal tomorrow, but you'd better go to see Madame Pomfrey again after class. Thank you. Neville looked at Ian with gratitude. Thank you, Ian. You are such a good Slytherin. It's okay. Be careful when brewing potions next time. Ian patted Neville on the shoulder and whispered, Professor Snape is just a little worried about your safety. Don't be sad. Neville nodded and carefully applied the potion on the wound. It hurts, it hurts. Neville grimaced in pain. But the magical thing is that as soon as the potion was applied, the swelling of his swollen left arm subsided at a speed visible to the naked eye. Snape looked at this scene, and his face finally looked better. But then, the Snake King started to attack Harry again. Harry Potter, you're sitting next to Longbottom. Why don't you tell him not to add porcupine quills? Do you think you're good just because he made a mistake? Gryffindor lost another 5 points because of you. Why is it my business again? Harry opened his mouth and wanted to explain something, but was stepped on by Ian. Harry looked down and saw Ian shaking his head slightly at him. Harry swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Ian looked up at Snape in front of him. He knew that the other party was taking advantage of the situation to vent his dissatisfaction with James on Harry. Fortunately, he looks like Lily's mother, thanks to Merlin. Chapter 26. Harry is targeted by Snape after the whole potion class. Harry felt that his whole soul was attacked by poison, and his spirit was depressed. So after class, Harry couldn't help complaining to Ian. Professor Snape always targets me. I didn't do anything. In this class, he deducted 30 points from Gryffindor because of me. Ian, you are right. He is deliberately picking on Gryffindor. Harry, calm down. Ian patted Harry on the back. He felt that Harry should be thankful that he was Lily's child. Otherwise, with Harry's face, Gryffindor would be deducted negative points by Snape. Professor Snape didn't target Gryffindor too much, did he? Cassandra came over and looked at Harry in confusion. At least, Miss Granger was given 10 extra points by Professor Snape. That's because Hermione is smart. She's a top student, Ronald yelled. If Snape doesn't give her extra points, he's really biased. I also think Professor Snape is okay. Hermione poked her finger hesitantly. Putting aside other things, Professor Snape is a very good potion master. Yes, Professor Snape is indeed a very good potion master. Ian shrugged, but this doesn't conflict with his love of deducting points from Gryffindor. Hermione looked at Harry with an indescribable expression. Harry, it seems that Professor Snape maybe just targeting you? Harry scratched his hair irritably. I really don't understand why he targets me so much. What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything. Harry, I'm even worried that Professor Snape will target you in every class in the future. Hermione whispered. Ian also nodded. Harry, although it's not nice to say that, you have to get used to Professor Snape's weirdness as soon as possible. After all, you still have to study in Hogwarts for 7 years, and Professor Snape will also teach potions in Hogwarts for 7 years. After hearing this, Harry's face turned green. What? No. Oh, if the potions class can have a different teacher. Ronald sighed. Snape only likes Slytherin students. Just like Ian, Snape's attitude towards Ian and Harry is completely different. Cassandra and Draco looked at each other and said faintly, although we and Potter/Ian are all Slytherin students, Professor Snape didn't give us such crazy extra points. Ian touched his nose and said a little embarrassedly, maybe it's because my potion level is not bad. Professors like children who study well, right? Draco rolled his eyes. You might as well say it's because you are the savior. If it's because of the savior, Ian and Harry are twin brothers. Even if Harry is from Gryffindor, there is no reason for Professor Snape to hate Harry so much, right? Besides, Professor Snape seems to despise Harry's identity as the savior. Hermione couldn't figure it out either. Cassandra stared at Ian's face and blurted out subconsciously, is it possible that he is likable because of his handsome face? What kind of reason is that? Ronald muttered. Isn't Ian handsome? Cassandra asked back. She looked at the delicate little boy in front of her, who was looking at her inexplicably. Cassandra's cheeks suddenly blushed, and she turned her head away unnaturally. How could the old bat favor Ian just because he is handsome? Ronald shouted exaggeratedly. Hey, Weasley, even if you want to defend Potter, you don't have to say that about Professor Snape. Draco yelled angrily. You actually nicknamed the professor. Am I wrong? Ronald saw that it was Draco, and he spoke even more vigorously. He is just an old bat, cold and biased. Weasley, I want to tell me. Draco's face turned red, like a little pufferfish. He looked at Ronald aggressively. I want to duel with you. Duel then duel. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Malfoy. Ronald also yelled. I say calm down, both of you. Ian grabbed Ronald with one hand and Draco with the other hand, and said helplessly, we are all friends. Why do we have to duel? Ronald, Draco is right. Don't give professors nicknames casually. Ian turned to Ronald with a serious face. Besides, Professor Snape is Draco's godfather. To be honest, Draco's reaction was good enough to scold someone's godfather in front of him. If it were him, he would have cursed Ronald directly. Right, sorry, Malfoy. Seeing Ian say this, Ronald, no matter how reluctant he was, also mumbled and apologized to Draco. Draco's face looked better at this time. He snorted and turned his head with his chin raised. Draco, this is Ronald's fault. Ian turned his head and looked at Draco again, but he just cares too much about Harry. Seeing Harry being deducted points by Professor Snape, he was a little angry. But whether to forgive him or not is up to you, Draco. After hearing what Ian said, Draco's expression completely eased. He snorted and muttered, Since Ian, you said so, then I will reluctantly forgive you, Weasley. Ronald also breathed a sigh of relief. It might be a bit bad to scold their dean in front of Malfoy, but scolding his godfather in front of him was indeed a bit too much. After Ian's mediation, the atmosphere between Ronald and Draco was finally not so tense. Ian nodded with satisfaction. This is right. What are you arguing about? They are all his main force in dealing with Voldemort in the future. Colleagues should be friendly to each other. Okay, Harry, don't worry. Ian turned to look at Harry and smiled. I will protect you in potions class from now on. I promise that Professor Snape will not deduct too many points from you. Harry looked at Ian with emotion. Ian, you are really my good brother. Harry, although Ian will protect you, you should stay away from Snape. Ronald muttered. Anyway, no Gryffindor student likes Snape. Hermione raised her hand silently, and Ronald quickly changed his words. Well, except you, Hermione. Actually, I can understand why everyone doesn't like Professor Snape. Hermione sighed. He does always target Gryffindor and always speaks in a sarcastic tone. But he has a high level of potions and is very powerful. He is a very good professor. Hermione changed her tone and praised Snape again. Facing the numb eyes of Harry and Ronald, Ian smiled helplessly. You know, Hermione loves to study. In her eyes, as long as the knowledge is taught well, is a good teacher. Cassandra glanced at Hermione. Then you should go to Ravenclaw. There are like-minded classmates. Hermione shook her head in confusion. I don't know why the Sorting Hat sorted me into Gryffindor, even if it thinks I am also suitable for Ravenclaw. Gryffindor's characteristics are bravery or recklessness. Cassandra looked Hermione up and down. You also love to get into trouble? Cassandra. Ian raised his voice helplessly. Cassandra snorted and stopped talking. Let's go have lunch. Ian hurriedly greeted a few people and walked towards the auditorium. There are flying lessons in the afternoon. Only after eating a full meal can you have the strength to fly. Ian is right. Weasley, Scared. I'll show you how good I am. How good I fly. Hee hee. Malfoy/Oilhead. I hope you won't make a fool of yourself. Chapter 27. Flying lesson. While Draco and the other two were arguing, Ian took them directly to the Gryffindor table. Draco stopped arguing with Harry and noticed the way the other Gryffindors looked at them. He swallowed his saliva subconsciously. Ian, just send them here. Let's go back to Slytherin. Cassandra was not used to the gazes of these little lions and quickly pulled Ian's sleeve. Of course, Ian didn't think about having lunch at the Gryffindor table. He turned to look at Harry and the other two and smiled. Let's go, Hermione, Harry, Ronald. See you later. Okay, Ian, see you later. Harry and the other two quickly waved goodbye to Ian. Ian nodded and took Draco and Cassandra to the Slytherin table. I got scared. I thought Ian was going to take us to eat at Gryffindor. Draco stroked his chest, looking frightened. Although we have a good relationship with those three guys, I will never eat at their long table. Indeed, Cassandra nodded. Besides, Gryffindor is too noisy. We Slytherins are quieter. Listening to the noise coming from the Gryffindor long table and looking at his classmates who were eating quietly beside him, Ian nodded in agreement. Fortunately, you three didn't get carried away and really sit at the Gryffindor long table. Blaise, who was opposite Ian, said with a look of relief, "If you really sat there, Professor Snape will never let you off. I'm afraid you will be turned into 3 Slytherin statues by the professor and placed at the entrance of the auditorium." Thinking of this scene, Blaise couldn't help but shudder. Ian was also shocked by Blaise's imagination. He looked at Blaise speechlessly, his mouth twitching slightly. "Believe me, Blaise, Professor Snape will never do such a childish thing as turning a person into a statue and placing it at the entrance of the auditorium." "No, he will," Cassandra said faintly. Ian turned his head to look at Cassandra, slightly opening his mouth with a look of surprise. In fact, a few years ago, there was a half-blood wizard in Slytherin who fell in love with a witch from Gryffindor and then sat at their long table for dinner. Theodore gestured to Ian to look at the brown-haired boy at the end of the long table. The next day, Professor Snape picked out some minor mistakes, punished the senior, turned him into a statue, and placed him opposite the Gryffindor long table for a whole morning. Ian turned his head to look in the direction pointed by Cassandra and Theodore, and indeed saw a brown-haired boy who was concentrating on eating, looking very handsome. So miserable. Ian swallowed. Didn't Professor Dumbledore do anything? Didn't he stop this behavior? Professor Dumbledore went to America for a meeting and was not in school at all. Cassandra shrugged. When Professor Dumbledore came back, it was too late to do anything. He had already been punished. What happened next? Ian asked. What happened to that senior and his relationship with the Gryffindor witch? The relationship naturally ended in vain. Theodore shrugged. After all, no little witch wants her boyfriend to be turned into a statue and placed there for people to visit. As for the senior, Theodore pointed at the brown-haired boy. Look, now he doesn't even dare to look up when eating for fear that others will see his face, so naturally he doesn't dare to date a little witch anymore. Ian turned his head and saw that the brown-haired boy lowered his head again, wishing he could bury his whole face in the plate. It's miserable. It's really miserable. It's miserable. Ian silently lit a candle for the senior in his heart. So, Ian, don't sit at the Gryffindor table. Cassandra looked at Ian seriously. I don't want to see you turned into a statue at the entrance of the hall one day. Don't worry, I will never sit at the Gryffindor table. Ian shook his head quickly, his face firm. I will definitely defend the identity of Slytherin to the death. When he can beat Snape, he will go to the Gryffindor long table to eat. Ian added silently in his heart. After lunch, Ian and his friends took a short break and went to the flying class venue. Good afternoon, children. Madam Hooch stood in the middle of the playground. There was a row of brand new flying brooms next to each little wizard. It seems that you have been looking forward to it for a long time. Now, there are brooms next to you. You just need to put your hands on them and say, get up, and the brooms will automatically come to your hands. Remember, say it with emotion. The little wizards nodded one after another and then couldn't wait to try. Get up quickly. Ian was also trying to wake up his flying broom, but the broom next to him just shook slightly and didn't fly to his hand. He turned to look at Harry and Draco, and their brooms were already in their hands. Is it true that the child will inherit the talent of whoever he looks like? He looks like his mother Lily, and is good at potions just like her mother Lily. Harry looks like James, so all James' Quidditch talent points are added to Harry? Ian looked at Harry, turned his head silently to look at the broom at his feet, and said affectionately, get up. This time, the broom flew off the ground, but before it reached Ian's hand, it fell heavily again. Ian quickly dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the broom that was about to hit his feet. Well, it seems that he really did not inherit James' Quidditch talent. Ian, you don't have a good relationship with your broomstick. Draco laughed gloatingly. Why don't you try to shout its name loudly, like calling a pet, and call it up? Draco, my fist as big as a sandbag will fall on your face in a moment. Ian shook his fist and glared at Draco unhappily. I think you don't want your broomstick anymore. Draco quickly covered his mouth, but the gloating smile on his face could not be stopped. Ian took a deep breath and thought to himself, System. Exchange all the remaining charm points for Quidditch talent. Ding. Remaining charm points. 66. All points have been added to the host's Quidditch talent. As his voice fell, Ian suddenly felt that his body seemed to be much lighter, and even the broomstick in front of him became much more friendly. Get up, Ian said softly. This time, the broomstick seemed to have life and flew straight into Ian's hand. Chapter 28, Neville's Memory Ball. Seeing that Ian had made peace with his broom, Hermione couldn't help but look at the broom at her feet. Alas, her broom really didn't give her face. She called it several times, but the broom just wouldn't get up. Hermione tried again, but the broom just rolled on the ground and had no intention of getting up. Ian keenly noticed the plight of the little green plum. While Mrs. Hooch was not paying attention, he took out his wand and tapped Hermione's broom lightly. Get up. The next second, the broom, which was still lying on the ground, suddenly jumped up and flew straight into Hermione's hand. Hermione looked at the broom in her hand with surprise, turned her head, and saw Ian winking at her. Hermione felt a little warm in her heart. She smiled at Ian, then turned her head to look at the broom in her hand and gently stroked it twice. Ian, it seems that you have all mastered the technique of flying the broom. Madame Hooch clapped her hands, attracting the attention of the little wizards. Then, let's start learning to fly now. You ride on the broom and push hard against the ground. Madame Hooch explained and demonstrated. Okay, now I'll count 1, 2, 3, and when the whistle blows, you will jump up gently. Remember, you must jump up gently. If you jump too hard, you will fall off the broom. Okay, now 1, 2. Before Madame Hooch finished speaking, someone couldn't wait to fly to the sky. It's Longbottom. A little wizard saw the little wizard flying to the sky with sharp eyes. Merlin, he's flying so high. Ian looked up and saw Neville screaming in the air, and the whole person was shaky on the broom. Mr. Longbottom! Mr. Longbottom! Mrs. Hooch shouted loudly, but Neville could no longer hear her voice. The young wizards present all watched Neville nervously as he flew out. The out-of-control broom swung Neville around in the air. Madame Hooch took out her wand. Longbottom fly dash. Before she finished her spell, the flying broom took Neville straight to the crowd. The young wizards were so scared that they fled everywhere, and Ian also pulled Hermione and Cassandra to hide to the side. Everyone watched Neville fly to the roof, and then his school robe was hung on the tip of the statue. Neville swallowed his saliva, and he could already hear the sound of his clothes tearing. Sure enough, the next second, his robe could not bear his weight, and it tore straight apart, and Neville fell from midair. Oh my God! Hermione couldn't help but exclaimed. She clasped her hands tightly in front of her chest and looked at Neville with a worried look. Wingardium Leviosa. Ian drew out his wand and firmly recited the spell to Neville, and Neville's falling speed slowed down immediately. The young wizard from both schools looked at Ian, who cast the spell. No, brother. Are you too good? What spell is this? I don't know it at all. The lions from Gryffindor looked at Ian with admiration. The little snakes from Slytherin looked proud. That's right. Isn't the wizard who cast the spell handsome? We are Slytherins. Our prefect. We know him very well. Madame Hooch also cast a levitation spell. 2 wizards cast the spell, and Neville's falling speed became slower and slower, and then he slowly floated to the ground. Madame Hooch rushed over and hugged Neville, and the young wizards also surrounded him. Poor child. Madame Hooch checked Neville's injuries. Fortunately, it's just a scratch. Neville lay in Madame Hooch's arms and cried in fear. Madame Hooch patted Neville's back gently. It's okay, Mr. Longbottom. You're safe. She turned to look at Ian with a little more praise in her eyes. Ian, you did a good job. If you didn't recite the spell in time, Neville might be in danger. I want to add 10 points to Slytherin. Ian smiled slightly and said modestly, You are flattering, Madame Hooch. I just did what I should do. Madame Hooch praised Ian a few more times, then turned to look at the little wizards watching, and said with a stern face, "I'm going to take Mr. Longbottom to the school infirmary now. He has some scratches. When I come back, I don't want to see anyone in the sky. Otherwise, before this year's Quidditch game, I will let this person withdraw from the flying class." You all saw it. Mr. Longbottom almost fell off the broom. I hope you can learn from it. The little wizard stood in place and watched Madam Hooch take Neville away. Until the two disappeared, the little wizards looked at Ian again. "Ian, what spell did you just chant?" A little wizard asked curiously. "Why can you make Neville float?" "It's the levitation spell." Ian explained, "This spell can make objects float, and is a must-learn spell for us in the first grade." "Ian, you have learned the levitation spell now." Theodore looked at Ian with admiration. "You are so amazing. I just like reading books, so I learned in advance," Ian said modestly, but he couldn't suppress the smile on his face. "Hey, what is that?" Ian was secretly happy and suddenly heard Ronald's exclamation and subconsciously looked in the direction of his finger. Neville's broom was flying in the sky with a transparent glass ball. "It's a memory ball," Hermione exclaimed. "That's Neville's memory ball." Ian squinted his eyes and looked at the crazy broom flying up and down, left and right in the air. "I'm going to get that memory ball back." Harry rode on the broom and shouted, "Harry, you're crazy." Ronald quickly grabbed Harry. "You haven't even taken a formal flying lesson, and you dare to ride a broom." Hermione also disagreed. "Harry, Madam Hooch just said that no one can fly to the sky before she comes back. Otherwise, they will quit the flying lesson." "But that's Neville's memory ball." Harry looked at the broom flying in the sky that was given to him by his grandmother, Hermione. Ian looked at this scene and couldn't help but sigh at the plot correction power. Even if Draco didn't take Neville's memory ball this time, it still flew to the sky in a bizarre way. Just when Ian was sighing, a golden head rushed out of the crowd. "Scarhead, I support you. Let's compete to see who can help Longbottom get the memory ball back first," Draco said, riding his own broom. Harry looked at Draco and rode on his broom, ready to retrieve the memory ball. "Then let's compete, Slicker." After that, the two of them kicked their feet and flew straight into the sky. "Harry, Malfoy!" Ronald shouted loudly. Seeing that both of them flew up, Hermione stamped her feet in anger. "Draco, get down quickly. What are you doing with Harry? These two guys are crazy." Cassandra was also gnashing her teeth in anger. "How dare they? If they're not afraid of death, I can throw them off the castle with my own hands. There's no need to fly up to the sky and break my neck." Seeing this, Ian hurriedly grabbed Cassandra. "Don't be impulsive, Cassandra. If you throw them, you'll have to go to Azkaban." However, Ian still admired the two people's behavior of flying up. After all, the flying skills of the first-year wizards are not proficient, and the two dared to fly up, which is indeed a bit courageous. Chapter 29. Crazy Broom, what should we do now? Theodore looked at Ian. "Should we fly up as well? What if Potter and Draco both fall down?" "What are you thinking about, Theodore?" Blaise interrupted Theodore. "Shall we fly up and then fall down together?" Ian's eyes lit up. He is now a Quidditch talent at the highest level. If he is discovered, will he also be able to join the Quidditch team in his first year? Here comes another chance to show off in front of others. Thinking of this, Ian also got on his broom. "Ian, what are you doing?" Cassandra saw Ian's desperate behavior and grabbed him. "Are you going crazy with them?" "Cassandra, don't worry, I'm sure." Ian smiled and said confidently, "I'll fly up and save them." Hermione's eyes turned red with anxiety. "Ian, what are you going to do? I will never allow you to go." "Hermione, you have to believe me. When have I ever done something I'm not sure of?" Ian said softly, "Just wait and see my agile skills. Remember to cheer." After that, Ian kicked his legs and rushed directly into the sky. "Ian." Hermione and Cassandra clenched their hands in anger, but they could only watch Ian fly higher and higher. "Look, Ian Potter is flying up too." I don't know which little wizard shouted, and everyone looked up at the sky. In the sky, Harry and Draco were approaching the crazy broom on the left and right, and Ian was chasing behind them. "Oh, Merlin's beard." Ronald looked at Ian's back and exclaimed, "Ian is crazy too, but this is so cool." Theodore and Blaise also nodded in agreement. "Yes, it's so cool." The three people's words successfully aroused the anger of the two little witches. Do you think it's cool? Hermione turned her head viciously. If Ian falls and breaks his neck, I will use your 3 heads to transplant him. Let you feel what cool is. Cassandra also rarely agreed with Hermione. Yes, if you 3 dare to say another word, I will make you speechless forever. Ronald, Theodore, and Blaise, the 3 little wizards, were suddenly silent. The 3 looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. They are too terrible. What a miserable life Ian has. Just when the ground was in a mess, the 3 people in the sky also started to move. Harry took the lead and rushed to the crazy broom, reaching out to grab the flying memory ball. Seeing this, Draco quickly accelerated and flew forward, trying to get ahead of Harry. Ian flew slowly behind the 2 of them, ready to attack at any time. Just when Harry was about to touch the memory ball, the broom suddenly made a sharp turn and rushed towards Draco. Draco, be careful, Harry shouted loudly. Ian saw that Draco was in danger and reached out to grab the crazy broom aimed at Draco. But the broom was too fast, and he just took the memory ball off the broom. Draco panicked when he saw Ian miss, and he quickly turned the broom in the direction of the broom to avoid the crazy broom. But Draco was still a step slower, and the broom hit Draco hard, and Draco immediately lost his balance and fell off the broom. Draco! Harry saw this and quickly accelerated and flew over, grabbed Draco's clothes, and pulled him onto his broom. Harry! Draco hugged Harry's waist in shock. Thank you. Don't talk, Harry shouted. Hold on tight, I'll pull you up. After that, Harry was ready to pull Draco back to his broom. However, the crazy broom hit again. This time, its target was Harry. Ian had been paying attention to the situation of Harry and Draco. When he saw the crazy broom hit Harry, he quickly accelerated and flew over and grabbed Harry's arm. Ian. Harry looked at Ian in surprise. Why are you? Ian's face turned black, and he gritted his teeth and said, This broom is not right. It seems to have been cursed. He didn't need to think too much. It was probably Quirrell who saw the 3 of them in the sky and wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of them. After all, among the 3 people, there are 2 saviors, and one is the Malfoy family kid who betrayed Voldemort. All here. Hearing Ian's words, Harry and Draco changed their faces. What should we do now? Draco asked in a trembling voice. It's okay, I'm here, Ian said in a deep voice. Let's go back to the ground first. After that, Ian took Harry and Draco to the ground. However, the crazy broom caught up again, and this time, it was even faster than before. Don't panic. Ian glanced at the castle behind him. This broom will follow us and rush to other students. We have to find a way to land in the castle, where we should be safe. Harry nodded. This is the only way. After that, the 3 of them worked together and flew towards the castle. On the ground, the little wizards saw this scene and exclaimed, Oh my God, they are flying so high. Too dangerous. Will they fall down? By the way, should we go find the professor? Hermione and Cassandra clenched their hands nervously, staring at the 3 people in the sky without blinking. Ronald, Theodore, and Blaise also became nervous. Although they thought flying was cool, they became worried when they saw Ian and the other 2 in danger. Just when everyone was nervous, the 3 people in the sky finally flew over the castle. Ian glanced at the crazy broom behind him, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Want to kill them? But it's not that easy. Ian aimed his wand at a window on the castle and shouted, Harry, Draco, get ready to jump out of the window. Harry and Draco nodded and grabbed their brooms tightly. Ian took a deep breath and waved his wand vigorously. Water mirror. Before the voice fell, the brooms of the 3 people were like arrows from a string, and they suddenly accelerated and rushed towards the window on the castle that had turned into water. Bang! After a loud bang, the 3 people rushed into the castle with their brooms, and the window returned to its original state. Because the crazy broom was too fast, it had no time to stop. It hit the hard glass window of the castle hard, and it made a loud bang, and then fell to the ground and turned into a pile of debris. Ian pulled the corner of his mouth subconsciously. He dared to say that this glass window must have been made by the flower grower. Chapter 30. The anger of an older cat girl. The young wizards on the ground cried out when they saw this scene. Oh my God, are they okay? It was so thrilling. It was almost. Stop talking. Let's go and see if they're injured. After that, the young wizards ran towards the castle. Inside the castle, Ian, Harry, and Draco were lying on the ground, gasping for breath, their faces full of relief for surviving the disaster. Great, we are all fine, Harry said with a gasp. Draco also nodded. Yeah, it was so thrilling just now. Fortunately, we are fine. Ian smiled and took out the memory ball from his arms. It's quite exciting. Exciting? Who of you three can tell me what's going on? At this moment, a stern voice suddenly sounded in the ears of the three. Hearing this, the three were stunned for a moment, and then turned their heads to look, only to see Professor McGonagall standing beside them with a serious face, his hands on his hips, glaring at them. They then noticed that they were in the Transfiguration classroom, and even said that students from other colleges were still in class. They were in a hurry just now and didn't pay attention to this at all. Harry and the other two quickly got up from the ground and stood in front of Professor McGonagall with their heads down like three quails. Sorry, Professor McGonagall. Harry stammered to apologize. We didn't mean it. That's right, Professor. It was because the broom suddenly went crazy that we ran in. Draco also explained. Ian laughed twice and looked at Professor McGonagall timidly. Professor, let me explain. In fact, this is an accident. The anger from the older cat girl. Can the favorability he brush play a role at this time? Accident? You almost lost your life, Professor McGonagall said angrily. What on earth were you doing? The three looked at each other and said in unison. We were chased by a flying broom. Professor McGonagall frowned, and his expression became serious. What on earth is going on? Everyone, go to self-study first, Professor McGonagall said to the second-year students who were in class, and glanced at the three quails. You three follow me. What on earth happened? Professor McGonagall and Ian stood outside the classroom. Harry took a deep breath and told Professor McGonagall what happened after they flew into the sky. After listening to Harry's words, Professor McGonagall's face suddenly became solemn. You said that the broom suddenly went crazy? Professor McGonagall asked in a deep voice. It's true, Professor. Ian said, the broom seems to be cursed and keeps chasing us. I think someone wants to kill us. Professor McGonagall frowned, his face full of seriousness. This is a serious matter. I must report it to Headmaster Dumbledore immediately. Before that, you three come with me to the hospital wing and let Madame Pomfrey check your body. Harry and the other two nodded obediently, and then followed Professor McGonagall to the hospital wing. On the way, Professor McGonagall said as he walked, You three are too naughty. You dare to fly around in the flying class. Do you know how dangerous it is? I'm sorry, Professor, we know we are wrong. Harry and the other two apologized in unison. Professor McGonagall sighed. Fortunately, you are all fine. Soon, the four of them arrived at the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey saw Harry and the other two and was stunned for a moment. Why are you here again? What happened this time? They had an accident. Poppy, you helped them check. Professor McGonagall said. Madame Pomfrey was nervous when she heard this. She quickly let Harry and the other two lie on the bed, and then began to carefully check their bodies. After a check, Madame Pomfrey breathed a sigh of relief. They are all fine, just a few scratches and bruises. I will give them some medicine. Professor McGonagall was also relieved when she heard this. It's good that they are fine. After Madame Pomfrey gave Harry and the other two medicine, Professor McGonagall took them out of the medical wing and went to the principal's office to find Principal Dumbledore. Ian, we won't be expelled, will we? Harry was scared at this moment. Ian twitched his mouth. You are scared now? Draco waved his hand. What's so scary? My father is a school director. I asked him to donate money to Hogwarts. Dumbledore will definitely not dare to expel us. Ian and Harry looked at each other, and they saw speechlessness in each other's eyes, this unlucky child. Soon, under the leadership of Professor McGonagall, the three of them came to the door of the principal's office. Knock, knock, knock. Professor McGonagall knocked on the door. Come in. Dumbledore's voice came from the principal's office. Professor McGonagall pushed the door open and walked in. Harry, Ian, and Draco hurriedly followed. At this moment, Principal Dumbledore was standing in front of the window, with his back to the door, standing with his hands behind his back, looking at the scenery outside the window. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Dumbledore turned around and smiled at Professor McGonagall and Harry. "Minerva, what's the matter?" "Dumbledore, something big happened," Professor McGonagall said solemnly. Dumbledore's smile gradually disappeared upon hearing this, replaced by a solemn expression. "What happened?" "It's like this." Professor McGonagall told Dumbledore what Harry and the other two had encountered in the flying class, and their guesses. "I think this is very serious, and it is very likely that someone wants to harm them." After hearing Professor McGonagall's words, Dumbledore's face became completely gloomy, and there was a dangerous light flashing in his eyes. "Professor Dumbledore, could it be Voldemort?" Ian asked tentatively. Hearing the word Voldemort, Dumbledore's eyes flickered slightly, and then he shook his head slowly. "It's not clear yet, but I will find out." After speaking, he turned his head to look at Harry and the other two, and said softly, "You three go back first. I will handle this matter." Harry and the other two heard this, nodded obediently, and then left the principal's office. "Ian, you just said that Voldemort wanted to kill us." Harry clenched his fists. "Just a guess." Ian glanced at the pale Draco. "Let's not talk about Draco. Just the two of us saviors are enough to make Voldemort hate us." After Voldemort fell, Lucius, the head of the Malfoy family, swore that he was cast under the Imperius curse and forced to become a Death Eater. "Do you think anyone believes this?" Ian sneered. Anyway, Voldemort didn't believe it. It's not surprising that Voldemort wants to kill Draco, the only heir to the pureblood family who betrayed him. Ian clenched his wand and said, "What's more, Draco is so close to our two saviors. Isn't this enough to make Voldemort angry?" Draco's face became paler and paler. "Ian, if I stay away from you two now, isn't it too late?" "Don't worry. I'll take care of it later." Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. "You have already boarded the pirate ship of my two saviors, and it is impossible to get off." "Draco, okay, don't worry. We will fight back when the enemy comes, and we will cover the water with earth." Ian said lightly, "We are only in the first grade now, and it is useless to think so much. Let's work hard to improve our strength. At least if Voldemort wants to kill us, he will have to pay a price." "Ian is right," Draco also echoed. "We are still too weak now, and we must work hard to improve our strength." Knowing that Voldemort actually wanted to kill him, Draco deeply realized the importance of learning at this moment. Only by studying hard can you master powerful magic and protect yourself and your family. Ian looked at the two of them, and there was one more thing he didn't say. Dumbledore would never watch him and Harry get into trouble. Chapter 31, joining the Quidditch team, as Ian said. After Harry and the other two left the headmaster's office, Dumbledore called Snape. "Severus, you have to protect Harry and Ian. Voldemort has set his sights on them." Dumbledore looked at Snape solemnly. "You shouldn't use the Philosopher's Stone to lure Voldemort. They're only first years." "First years." "Dumbledore," Snape roared with a twisted face. "They have just come into contact with magic. Can they protect themselves? In order to destroy Voldemort, you have done everything you can." "Calm down, Severus," Dumbledore sighed. "Of course I know this is dangerous, but in order to destroy Voldemort, we must take risks, and Harry and Ian must grow up as soon as possible." Snape said gloomily, "Are you going to gamble with their lives?" "Of course not," Dumbledore said. "I will protect them, and you have to believe in Harry and Ian. They have unlimited possibilities." Snape sneered. "Unlimited possibilities? They're just two little trolls who know nothing now. You want them to deal with Voldemort. We have to believe in the two Potters." Dumbledore looked at the three little wizards surrounded by classmates downstairs. "Severus, actually at the beginning, I thought Ian would be the second Voldemort. I admit that no matter what happened yesterday, Ian helps students' behavior or the attitude towards the professors, which reminds me of Tom. I think Ian, like the original Voldemort, accumulates strength and seek big things. The sharp light, even they have lived in the orphanage, and they're all mixed-race wizards in Slytherin. Enough! Snape interrupted Dumbledore omnibly. Ian is not Voldemort. He will never be a person like Voldemort. Dumbledore smiled. Of course, I also know that Ian is different from Tom. Quote, just followed Dumbledore looked over and saw Ian and the other two smiling and high-fiving. His eyes flickered slightly. Then he looked away and snorted, I know Ian is a good kid without you telling me. Ian has a lot of friends, like the kid from the Malfoy family. Dumbledore said, although I don't think Voldemort will target him, you'd better take care of that kid, Severus. Snape's face suddenly darkened, and he said unhappily, that's my godson. You don't need to remind me. After that, he turned and left the headmaster's office. Looking at Snape's back as he walked away, Dumbledore smiled. At the same time, Ian downstairs suddenly sneezed. Ian, what's wrong with you? Hermione asked with concern. Nothing, my nose just suddenly itches. Ian rubbed his nose and smiled. Maybe someone is talking about me. Cassandra crossed her arms and snorted coldly. I guess the professors are discussing your feet just now. How can professors be so idle? Ian shrugged. As soon as he finished speaking, Snape's special tone sounded behind him. If our famous Ian Potter can make his hard-working dean worry less, then I have a lot of free time. Ian froze for a moment, turned slowly, and faced Snape's expressionless face. Professor. Ian smiled awkwardly. Why are you here? Snape snorted coldly. If I didn't come, how would I know that you had caused such a big mess for me? Ian touched his nose and said nothing. Professor McGonagall also came over and said, Ian, Professor Snape, and I have other things to talk to you about. Ian and the other two looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Potter, Malfoy, follow me. Snape glanced at Ian and Draco, then turned and walked towards another corridor. Ian and Draco hurriedly followed, while Harry followed Professor McGonagall. Professor, what do you want with us? Ian looked at Snape's back and couldn't help asking. Snape didn't answer, but took the two of them to the defense against the dark arts classroom. Professor Quirrell, I'm looking for Flint. Snape said to Quirrell, who was in class. Ding, ding. Of course, Snape. Professor, Quirrell stuttered, then turned to look at the unusually tall Slytherin boy in the classroom. Flint, Mr. Flint, please come out for a moment. Professor Snape, you want me? Flint said respectfully. Ian looked at Flint in surprise. This guy, with uneven teeth and a troll-like appearance, was so respectful to Snape. You know, in the movie, this guy is very arrogant, but now he is as obedient as a kitten. Flint, I found two excellent Quidditch players for you. Potter is the beater, and Malfoy is the seeker. Snape pointed at Ian and Draco and said, What? Three voices rang at the same time. Ian and Draco looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They're going to join the Slytherin Quidditch team? Professor, they're only in the first year. Flint also said in shock. Snape glanced at him coldly. What? Do you have any objection to my decision? No, I dare not. Flint shook his head quickly. Then it's settled. The two of them will join the Slytherin Quidditch team. Snape said, if I know that you dare to bully them. Snape glanced at Flint and didn't continue, but the threat was already very obvious. No, I won't, Professor. Flint said quickly. Snape nodded, and then said to Ian and Draco, you two should behave well and don't embarrass me. After that, he turned and left. Chapter 32. Medals in the showroom. Ian and Draco looked at each other, and then looked at Flint at the same time. Welcome to join the Slytherin Quidditch team. Tomorrow I will take you to familiarize yourself with the Quidditch rules. Flint said a little embarrassedly. So, Ian and Draco joined the Slytherin Quidditch team in this confused way. This is just like a dream, Draco said in disbelief. I actually joined Quidditch. First grade. I'm only in the first grade. I didn't expect it either. Ian also pretended to be surprised. I thought we had to be at least in the second grade to join the Quidditch team. Merlin's beard. I must write a letter to my father about this. Draco said excitedly. He will be proud of me. Ian, you know, we're the youngest Quidditch players in 100 years. Ahem. Ian, Draco. Hearing the cough, the two looked back, and the Gryffindor trio came over at some point. I have good news for you. Harry has become the Gryffindor Seeker, Ronald said excitedly. The youngest Seeker. Ian and Draco looked at each other and laughed at the same time. This is indeed good news. Ian laughed. But, Ronald, you may not know that Draco and I have also joined the Slytherin Quidditch team. I am the beater and Draco is the seeker. What? Ronald widened his eyes in shock. The youngest Quidditch player in 300 years. If I had known, I would have flown up in the class just now. Ronald said in annoyance. Maybe Professor McGonagall will also choose me to join the Gryffindor team. Come on, with your flying skills. Hermione hit him mercilessly. It's good enough that you don't get thrown off the broom. Don't talk if you haven't flown before. Ronald snorted. Okay, stop arguing, both of you. Harry interrupted them helplessly and suddenly looked worried. Actually, I'm a little scared, afraid that I will make a fool of myself in the game. I've never played Quidditch. No, Harry. Hermione was sure. You and Ian are both talented. Harry wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Hermione. Come with me, Hermione said. I have something to show you. Hermione led a few people to the award display room and stopped in front of one of the medals. There were a few lines of words engraved on it. The Quidditch House Cup won 6 consecutive championships, won by James Potter, the Seeker of Gryffindor. Look, your father was once a Seeker of Gryffindor, and one of the best Seekers in the history of Hogwarts. Hermione looked at Harry and said seriously, So, Harry, don't worry. Quidditch is something engraved in your and Ian's genes. Harry stared at the medal blankly. His eyes gradually moistened. Ian sighed in his heart and started again. He was going to perform under Dumbledore's nose again. Ian was silent for a moment, then pretended to be excited and shook Harry's hand. Harry, did you see that? This is the honor that Dad once won. Now it's our turn. Harry was infected by Ian's emotions, rubbed his eyes, and grinned. You're right, Ian. It's our turn. Just then, a shadow suddenly enveloped several people. Several people turned their heads and saw Dumbledore looking at them with a smile. What a touching scene. Dumbledore smiled. Seeing you two brothers, I feel like I saw James and Lily back then. Ian's heart suddenly jumped, and he knew that this oldie was really spying on him secretly. Ian pretended to casually glance at the portraits hanging on the wall, secretly complaining in his heart. These broken portraits are the eyes that monitor him. They are all in the same pot with Dumbledore. "Dear Professor Dumbledore," Harry stammered. "Don't be nervous, kids." Dumbledore smiled kindly. "Old people always like to reminisce about the past. When I saw you, I couldn't help but want to come over and chat." Ian sneered in his heart. It was obvious that he was worried about him, and he said it so high-soundingly. "I heard you two little guys say that you want to shine in Quidditch." Dumbledore looked at Harry and Ian and smiled. "I am very happy to see that you are so confident. I think if your parents were still here, they would be proud of you. Professor Dumbledore, we will work hard." Harry clenched his fists and said firmly. Ian didn't say anything, but just nodded slightly. He really didn't want to perform the brotherly love drama in front of Dumbledore again. "Very good, Harry." Dumbledore smiled and nodded. "I am looking forward to your performance in the Quidditch game." After that, Dumbledore turned and left. When he walked not far away, he suddenly turned his head to look at Ian and smiled gently. "And you, little Ian, I'm also looking forward to your performance." Ian cursed in his heart, but showed an innocent smile on his face and waved to Dumbledore. Dumbledore smiled and turned to leave. Harry let out a long breath. Professor Dumbledore is really kind. Yes, really kind, Ian agreed, but couldn't help rolling his eyes in his heart. Okay, let's go out quickly, Hermione urged. If we don't go out, it will be dark. Several people left the showroom and returned to the castle. Ian and Draco just returned to the Slytherin lounge and saw a group of people waving at them excitedly. Ian, Draco, you are back, Theodore shouted. Prefect Potter, we heard that you and Malfoy joined the Quidditch team. Is this true? You guys are so awesome. This time, we Slytherin will definitely win. Ian and Draco were surrounded by the crowd, and everyone asked, Okay, everyone be quiet. Ian covered his forehead, quite helpless. If you do this, Draco and I will go deaf. Everyone quieted down after hearing this, but still looked at Ian and Draco with excitement. Yes, Draco and I did join the Quidditch team, Ian said, But it's not just the two of us. Harry also joined the Gryffindor Quidditch team. So what? Prefect, you are the best. If it weren't for the prefect in today's flying class, Longbottom might have fallen to death. As Ian's diehard fan, Theodore immediately retorted, "That's right. Our prefect is the best. Gryffindor is nothing. Prefect, our Slytherin will definitely win the Quidditch Cup and the House Cup. That's right. We will win for 7 consecutive years." Looking at the enthusiastic faces of everyone, Ian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Too naive. How could Dumbledore let Slytherin win the Quidditch Cup and House Cup? Ian dared to bet that even if Slytherin really won the House Cup with his strength, Dumbledore would definitely find ways to send the trophy to Gryffindor. After all, Dumbledore still wants to build confidence for Harry and make him recognized in the wizarding world. Chapter 33, He is Not a Saint. Prefect, you won't give in to the Potter from Gryffindor, will you? Suddenly, an abrupt voice sounded in the crowd. Ian raised his eyebrows and looked at the person who spoke. What did you say? Prefect, we're going to win the championship for 7 consecutive years. You must not consider any brotherhood and give in to Potter in the competition. The man continued. Lost Selwyn, are you questioning Prefect Potter? Cassandra glared at the boy named Selwyn, defending Ian more actively than Ian himself. Ian glanced at Cassandra. Hey, this girl is quite protective of him. Draco also snorted. Selwyn, has your brain been stepped on by a troll? Ian didn't say anything, just looked at Losk indifferently. Losk was a little guilty, but he still said, but Prefect Potter and that Potter are brothers. So what? Ian interrupted him directly. Selwyn, do you think I will choose to let Gryffindor go because of personal feelings? Losk opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say it. On the Quidditch field, we are teammates. I will do my best to fight with him, but if we are opponents, I will not change my principles because of personal feelings. Ian glanced at everyone. I will do my best to compete with my opponent until the last moment, because I'm a Slytherin student, not a Gryffindor. Well said. Draco was the first to applaud. You are worthy of being our Slytherin prefect. Everyone also applauded, looking at Ian with eyes full of admiration. Ian just smiled and didn't say anything. Although Ian's words were to appease the disobedient little snakes of Slytherin, they were also what he thought. Since he was standing on the court, he represented Slytherin, so he would never let his opponent off. Not to mention that Harry was just his brother. Even if his real parents came, he would not let them off. Savior? He was playing for the Savior. Ian said a few more words to everyone, then took Draco back to the dormitory. That's Selwyn. He dared to question you. Draco was still indignant. Who is he? He dared to question my friend Malfoy. Okay, why are you angry? Ian smiled helplessly. Let him question anyway. I won't really let Harry go. Humph. Even if you really let Harry go, I won't agree. Draco snorted coldly. I won't win the Quidditch Cup with you. Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. Don't worry, I won't. I'm a Slytherin. When have you ever seen our Slytherin students let others go? Who said that? If the other side is Hermione, you will definitely let her go. Draco said without thinking. Ian choked up when he heard it. This is different. What's different? Draco asked. Is Hermione not a Gryffindor student? Ian opened his mouth, but found that he was speechless. Well, if the person on the other side is really Hermione, he may not be able to do it. Seeing Ian's frustrated look, Draco suddenly became proud. I knew you would let Hermione go. Okay, stop talking. Ian said helplessly. Why are you gossiping like a woman? Who do you say is like a woman? Hearing this, Draco was immediately angry. Ian Potter, I want to duel with you. Sleepy, Wingardium Leviosa. Ian cast a sleeping spell and a floating spell on Draco without hesitation. During this period, many Slytherin students came to talk to Ian, and without exception, they asked him not to let Harry go in the Quidditch match a month later. Ian, does he look like a saint? Why do everyone think he will let Harry go? He is not a saint. This doubt was soon answered by someone. Cassandra looked up and down at Ian. Maybe because you are a good person, everyone thinks you may let Harry Potter go for the sake of brotherhood? Ian, thank you. At least it proves that his personality in the packaging is very successful. but I know you won't." Cassandra smiled. Ian turned his head to look at her. "Do you trust me so much?" "Because you are Ian," Cassandra said seriously. Ian was stunned for a moment. This was the first time Cassandra called him by his Christian name. He thought so. So he asked, "Cassandra, you used to call me Potter. Why did you change the name today?" "Why? Only you can call me by my Christian name. Can't I call you that?" Cassandra raised her chin and said proudly, "Besides, doesn't Granger call you that too?" Ian heard this and was a little amused. "Of course you can call me that, Cassandra. You can call me whatever you want." "Huh. I know it without you saying it." Cassandra snorted lightly, but couldn't hide the smile at the corner of her mouth. Draco, who was standing by, was so upset that he couldn't help but complain. "Enough of you two. You're being so fussy here so early in the morning. Are you going to let me have breakfast?" "Draco, can't you shut up when you eat?" Cassandra glared at him. "If you keep talking nonsense, I'll let Ian cast a few more spells on you to teach you a lesson." Draco shut up from the bottom of his heart. He was hurt by Ian's combination spell yesterday, and he didn't dare to provoke this gentleman again today. After breakfast, the little wizards of Slytherin went to the classroom together. The morning class was very boring. It was the history of magic, and the professor was the ghost professor of Hogwarts, Cuthbert Binns. Cuthbert Binns read the class in a voice without any emotion, and the long tone made Ian drowsy, as if he was under a spell. Ian forced his eyelids and glanced at the people around him. Except for Hermione, everyone had fallen asleep. Ian looked at Hermione sitting next to him. The little girl stood up straight, listening to Cuthbert Binns's class attentively, and occasionally writing down a few notes in her notebook. "Ian, is this the world of academic masters? It's really amazing." He really couldn't pretend anymore. Cuthbert Binns was really sorry. He couldn't be a good student who respected his teacher now. Ian Potter, went to sleep first. Chapter 34. Voldemort's plan. Ian thought so. His head drooped uncontrollably, and his eyes slowly closed. Just when Ian was about to date Zhou Gong, he suddenly felt something poking his waist. Ian frowned, suppressed his anger, and opened his eyes, wanting to see which brat dared to disturb his sleep. However, when he saw the person who poked his waist, all his anger disappeared immediately. "Listen carefully to the class and don't sleep." Hermione looked at him seriously, holding a feather pen in her hand to poke him. Ian looked at Hermione, and the little girl's clear eyes were full of the 3 words, "for your own good." "But Cuthbert Binns' lectures are really hypnotic," Ian said with a bitter face, and except for the 2 of us, everyone fell asleep. "You don't like history class in the first place. If you don't listen, you will fail this course," Hermione said seriously. "No, I can look at your notes to review before the final exam," Ian said shamelessly. Hermione gave Ian a slap with a dark face and whispered, "Ian Potter." Yes, I was wrong. Ian covered his head and begged for mercy. "Umph." Hermione looked at Ian's sleepy appearance and was relieved. "Go to sleep. I'll give you the notes after class." "I knew it. Hermione, you are the best." Ian smiled immediately. Hermione looked at Ian's smiling face, and a smile rose unconsciously at the corner of her mouth. She snorted lightly and turned her head away and stopped looking at Ian. "Go to sleep quickly and stop talking." Okay. Ian closed his eyes without hesitation. With Hermione's permission, Ian was finally able to sleep peacefully this time. Before going to bed, Ian thought drowsily. Before he abolishes the statue of secrecy, he must be the headmaster of Hogwarts for a few years. When he takes office, the first thing he will do is to replace Cuthbert Binns and let him retire. After a while, Ian felt someone pushing him, and Hermione's voice rang in his ears. "Ian, wake up. Get out of class is over." Ian opened his eyes drowsily, and what came into view was Hermione's enlarged, beautiful face. "Get out of class is over." Ian sat up straight while rubbing his eyes. "Well, get out of class is over. Everyone has left." Hermione pulled Ian up and said, "Draco asked me to tell you that you have to practice Quidditch with Flint after lunch. Don't forget it." Ian and Hermione walked side by side, and he just nodded when he heard this. "Okay, I know. Hey, by the way, Hermione, do you have anything to do this afternoon?" "No, what's wrong?" Hermione asked. "Then do you want to watch me practice?" Ian invited. Today is my first time to officially contact Quidditch. Okay. Hermione thought about it and nodded in agreement, but I have to organize my notes before going. Wait until I come back tonight and organize them. Ian said casually. Hermione suddenly stopped and looked at Ian dimly, who was sleeping in class just now. Ian Potter, are you sure I want to organize my notes when I come back tonight? No, I'm not sure. Ian's scalp tightened immediately, and he said with a strong desire to survive, you should organize them now. I'll wait for you. Seeing Ian's following the heart look, Hermione finally withdrew her gaze with satisfaction and continued to walk forward. Ian looked at Hermione's back, couldn't help but chuckled, and hurriedly raised his feet to catch up. Hermione, walk slower, wait for me. Ian, hurry up. I'm hungry. I have to go to the hall to have lunch. Come on, don't worry. The voices of the two gradually faded away and finally disappeared at the end of the corridor. There were always eyes watching them from behind. Quirrell walked out of the shadow of the corridor. He looked at the direction where the two left, and his face showed a tangled and struggling expression. Master, Quirrell stopped stuttering at this time. Are we really going to let the troll in on Halloween? A cold and greasy voice sounded in Quirrell's mind. Are you questioning my decision? No, I dare not. A trace of fear flashed across Quirrell's face. It's just that the last flying broom has made Dumbledore more vigilant. I'm a little worried. Your task is to execute my orders, Quirrell. Voldemort interrupted Quirrell directly. Instead of questioning me here. Yes. Quirrell nodded and bowed hurriedly. I understand, Master. Humph. I know Dumbledore is on guard against us without your reminder. Voldemort's voice sounded again. But don't worry, I have plenty of ways to keep Dumbledore from taking care of the Philosopher's Stone this time. Yes, as long as we lead the two Potters to the troll, Dumbledore cares so much about them. He will definitely rescue them, and we can take them away. Quirrell didn't finish his words. He was Voldemort interrupted with a sneer. Foolish. Those two Potter boys, do you think Dumbledore won't use them? Voldemort sneered, especially the young one, who is gifted and has many friends at such a young age. Dumbledore must be on guard against him. Voldemort said gloomily, he is always wary of excellent Slytherin wizards, just like he was wary of me back then. Quirrell was shocked when he heard Voldemort's words and said cautiously, Master, what do you mean? The troll is just a cover. When the time comes, I will personally go out and get the Philosopher's Stone. As for the two Potters, Voldemort paused and continued. Just do as you say. I see that little Potter is very concerned about the Gryffindor Muggle Witch. You can start with that girl. Master, don't worry. It is normal for young wizards to have some quarrels. Quirrell smiled sinisterly. As long as I give a little guidance, our Miss Granger will probably cry because of her friend's misunderstanding. Voldemort listened to Quirrell's plan and hummed with satisfaction. Very good. Quirrell, you really didn't disappoint me. It's still a smart man from Ravenclaw. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment, Master. Quirrell showed a smug smile on his face. Okay, go and arrange the matter of the Philosopher's Stone first. Don't let me down. Voldemort ordered. Yes. Quirrell nodded and bowed in response. I'll do it right away. After that, Quirrell turned around and left with Voldemort behind him. Feeling Quirrell's steps, Voldemort's mouth curled up a cold smile. Dumbledore, do you think you can protect the Philosopher's Stone with your careful arrangements? The Philosopher's Stone will be in my pocket sooner or later. Voldemort, will return sooner or later. Chapter 35. Store up food and slowly become king after lunch. Ian and Hermione went to the Quidditch field. At this time, Wood and Flint were standing face to face on the Quidditch field. Both of them stared at each other, as if they wanted to kill each other with their eyes. Flint, I will train our Gryffindor's new seeker Harry Potter in Quidditch today. I have a note from Professor McGonagall. Wood patted Harry's shoulder and said to Flint opposite, please get out of the way. Wood, you really know how to pick the time. Flint sneered. I also have a note from Professor Snape, and I also want to train our new chaser Ian Potter and new seeker Draco Malfoy. When Flint spoke, he emphasized the word Potter to tell Wood that they were not the only ones in Gryffindor who had Potter. Wood frowned when he heard this. But we were here first. Wood, if you ask me, your practice is useless. Flint smiled provocatively. Don't forget that we Slytherins have won the Quidditch Championship for 6 consecutive years, and you Gryffindors are our defeated opponents." At this point, he glanced at Draco, standing beside him, and Ian, who was walking towards here not far away, and continued, "Especially this year, we have such excellent chasers and seekers, and you Gryffindors have even less chance of winning." You. Wood was furious when he heard this. He clenched the flying broom in his hand and was about to rush up to argue with Flint. At this moment, a slender hand reached out and grabbed Wood. Wood, calm down. Ian walked to Wood's side. Seeing that it was Ian, Wood's expression improved a lot. He knew that Ian was a good Slytherin, so he suppressed his anger and said, "Ian, you came at the right time. Please judge. Flint is too much." Ian smiled at Wood to comfort him, but he was already cursing in his heart. This Flint looks and thinks like a troll. Can't he cause less trouble for Gryffindor? He has to clean up this mess. If it weren't for accumulating food and becoming king slowly, he would definitely give this guy a big bite first. Although he scolded Flint in his heart, Ian didn't show it on his face. He turned his head to look at Flint and smiled slightly. "Flint, the Quidditch field is so big. You just train me and Draco. We can occupy half of the field with Wood and the others. But Ian, this will affect our training." Flint frowned and looked at Ian in confusion. He didn't know why Ian was speaking for Gryffindor, even though his own brother was in Gryffindor. But so what? "Flint, it might be a special experience for 2 schools to be on the same field." Ian patted Flint's shoulder and said in a low voice, "Besides, don't you want to dampen the morale of Gryffindor? See how they train the Seekers." When Flint heard what Ian said, he immediately understood Ian's intention. "You're right, Ian." Flint nodded. "This is a great opportunity for us Slytherins to defeat Gryffindor's morale." As he said that, he turned to look at Wood and smiled provocatively. "Wood, since Ian said so, let's train together. I want to see how you Gryffindors can beat us Slytherins this year." Wood listened to Flint's words. Although he was unwilling in his heart, he still suppressed his anger when he thought of what Ian had just said, and nodded. "Okay, then we will each have half of this court." In this way, Wood and Flint took a few people to each side of the court and started their own training. Hermione quietly pulled Ian before he changed his clothes. "What did you say to Flint just now? Why did he agree to it for no reason?" "I told him that it would dampen the morale of Gryffindor and let him see how they train their Seekers." Ian smiled and whispered he wanted to see Gryffindor make a fool of themselves so much, so he would definitely agree. "You are so smart." Hermione glanced at Ian coquettishly and said, "Go change your clothes quickly. I am still waiting to see you train." Ian nodded and turned to go to the locker room. After a while, Ian changed into Slytherin's Quidditch uniform and walked onto the court. At this time, Draco had also changed his clothes and was standing at the edge of the court with a flying broom. When Draco saw Ian, he immediately came up to him. "Come on, I know the rules of Quidditch. You listen to Flint carefully. If you don't understand anything, just ask me." Ian nodded and followed Draco to Flint's side. Flint saw that Ian and Draco were here, so he cleared his throat and began to explain the rules of Quidditch. Ian listened to Flint's explanation while observing the training of Gryffindor. Harry was riding on the flying broom, and under the leadership of Wood, he dived and rose again and again, doing various movements. Ian looked at Harry's movements and nodded secretly in his heart. Harry was indeed very talented in flying. His movements were smooth and natural, and he didn't look like a novice at all. Ian was a little jealous. This was born good, unlike him, who had to spend coins to buy it from the system. However, Ian was only jealous for a moment, and then he looked away. Ian, as a time traveler, with a system, if he can't even beat an 11-year-old wizard, then what is he doing? Thinking of this, Ian was immediately full of fighting spirit. He looked up at Flint. "Flint, I remember everything you said just now. Now, can we start training?" Draco also looked at Flint eagerly. "Yes, Flint, start training quickly. I can't wait." Flint looked at Ian and Draco, and a trace of satisfaction flashed in his eyes. "Okay, since you're all ready, let's start training now." As he said that, he turned and walked to the center of the court. "You start with the simple ones. Fly a few laps on the court on your broomsticks to get familiar with its performance," Flint said as he took out 2 quaffles. "This is the quaffle. Potter, you are the chaser. Your task is to throw the 2 quaffles into the 3 hoops. Malfoy, you are the seeker. I don't need to tell you much about your task. Catch the golden snitch. Ian and Draco nodded, then rode on their broomsticks and followed Flint to the center of the court. On the other side, Wood saw that Slytherin had started training, so he also called Harry to start training. For a while, the whole court was filled with the sound of flying broomsticks. Ian rode on his broomstick and flew over the court, but in his heart he was thinking about how to transform the broomstick into a long sword. He could go to Professor McGonagall to ask him. Then he could fly directly on the sword. Wouldn't that be awesome? Ian couldn't help laughing as he thought about it. Ian, what are you laughing at? Draco flew to Ian and asked in confusion. Nothing, I just thought of something funny. Ian shook his head and didn't tell Draco his thoughts. Seeing that Ian was unwilling to say, Draco didn't ask much, but just said, Ian, look at Harry. I just saw him find the golden snitch in 10 minutes. He is really fast. Speaking of this, Draco gritted his teeth and said, No. From now on, I will come to practice every day. I must not let Slytherin's Quidditch Cup be lost because of me. Then you have to work hard. Ian smiled slightly. Harry is indeed very talented in flying. If you want to surpass him, you have to work hard. Just watch. I will definitely surpass him. Draco snorted and then accelerated to fly forward. Ian looked at Draco's back, smiled, and also accelerated to catch up. Chapter 36. Nimbus 2,000 time passed slowly during the 2 people's training, and soon it was dinner time. Ian and Draco rode the flying broom back to the castle together, and the 2 went directly to the restaurant. At this time, the restaurant was full of people. Ian and Draco found a seat and sat down, and then started to eat dinner. Halfway through dinner, a group of owls flew in from the window, hovering over the restaurant, dropping packages one by one. Today is the day when owls deliver letters. I guess my mother will send me some cookies and candies again. Cassandra, who was sitting next to Ian, said softly. Ian nodded slightly, then turned his head to look out the window and saw a familiar owl flying towards the Gryffindor long table with a long package in its mouth. That was Harry's Hedwig. Ian looked at Hedwig flying towards Harry, and his heart couldn't help but move. Nimbus 2000, although he was not without money to buy it. But it was free. Who wouldn't want it? That's great. He said he should go to Gryffindor. Damn the Sorting Hat. If he was a Gryffindor student, Professor McGonagall would definitely give him one. On the other side, Harry had already taken the package from Hedwig's mouth. Harry looked at the long package in surprise. He actually received a package? Harry opened the package in confusion, and the next moment his eyes widened. In the package, there was a streamlined flying broom. Harry looked at the flying broom in his hand with some excitement. It was the first time he saw such a beautiful flying broom. Wow, it's a Nimbus 2000. This is not an ordinary broom. Ronald exclaimed. Harry, who gave you this? I don't know. I've never received a package. Harry shook his head, his eyes full of surprise. He subconsciously looked at the teacher's seat and saw Professor McGonagall smiling and nodding at him. Professor McGonagall. Harry immediately understood that it was Professor McGonagall who gave him the flying broom. Harry, you are so lucky. Ronald looked at the Nimbus 2000 in Harry's hand with envy. With this flying broom, you will definitely become the best seeker in Gryffindor. Harry was still happy in the last second and frowned in the next second. Ronald, where can I buy this broom? Ronald scratched his head. What's wrong, Harry? The Nimbus 2000 can be bought at the Quidditch Boutique in Diagon Alley. But why do you suddenly ask this? I want to buy one for Ian too, Harry said without thinking. My brother also wants a broom like this. Ronald was immediately envious. You brothers have a really good relationship. Harry smiled and didn't say anything, but he had already made up his mind to go to Professor McGonagall later and ask her to help buy a broom for him. Hermione nodded thoughtfully. She wanted to save money to buy a broom for Ian. She couldn't be inferior to her brother Harry. After all, she and Ian will be the closest family in the future. That is a relationship that even Harry, the twin brother, can't compare to. At the Slytherin table, Draco patted Ian on the shoulder and teased. Look, Harry received a Nimbus 2000. Are you jealous? Ian looked at the lively Gryffindor table. Harry was holding a brand new flying broom. No, Ian retracted his gaze and shook his head. Our Potter family is quite rich. I can definitely buy a better one. And so can Harry. Draco choked for a moment, then snorted, "Rich savior." Ian laughed and ignored Draco's teasing. At this moment, Ian's golden eagle Themis flew in from the window, holding 3 packages, and flew towards the Slytherin table. "Hey, isn't that Themis?" Cassandra held her chin, suppressed her pride, and looked at Ian. "Someone sent you a package, Ian. It should be from Aunt Granger." Ian smiled slightly, untied the package from Themis's feet, and fed it some snacks. "Good girl." Ian opened his 3 packages and then saw 3 Nimbus 2000s lying inside. As soon as the 3 flying brooms, shining with the light of money, appeared, the surrounding snakes immediately exclaimed, "3 Nimbus 2000s. How much does it cost?" Potter is so popular that 3 people gave him brooms. 3. Ian looked at the 3 flying brooms in front of him and couldn't help but be stunned. Cassandra immediately raised her chin proudly and pointed to the broom in the middle with the family crest of the Wally family. "This is a gift from me, Potter, our Wally family crest, and your name is engraved on the side." "And me," Draco pointed to the one on the left with a Malfoy family crest. "This is a gift from me to you." Draco suddenly felt a little depressed. "Originally, my broom arrived today, but my mother didn't let me use it so early." Ian looked at the 2 different family crests and couldn't help laughing. "Then I'll accept it, thank you." These 2 are really Slytherin students. They always bring family crests when giving things to others. Cassandra snorted lightly and turned her head away, revealing the slightly red tip of her ears. "We are friends. Why, thank you." Draco hit Ian's shoulder. "But who gave you this 3rd one?" Ian touched the logo of the Serpent House and looked towards the teacher's seat with a feeling, looking for the familiar black figure. When he met the familiar cold snake eyes, he smiled slightly. "I guess it's Professor Snape," Ian said softly, and then raised a bright smile to the other party. In the teacher's seat, Severus Snape's hand holding the quill paused slightly. His eyes stayed on Ian's bright smile for a moment, then retracted his gaze and wrote the next line on the parchment. Cassandra and Draco looked at each other. Their expressions were a little subtle. How could they not know that their dean also had the character of doing good things without leaving a name? "Do you often flatter Professor Snape? Why does he like you so much?" Draco couldn't help asking. "I'm his godson, and I haven't seen him send me one. I just often ask the professor for advice on potions." Ian shrugged and put away all 3 flying brooms. Cassandra looked at Ian thoughtfully and silently asked a question in her heart. She used to think that Professor Snape's attitude towards Ian was very subtle. Now it seems that this always indifferent dean is really special to Ian. Ian felt the subtle gazes of Cassandra and Draco and felt a little helpless. What should he say? Should he say that Snape is a dog who licks his mother, Lily? So he transferred all his love and guilt for Lily to him, the son who seemed to have lost his mother? Ian shook his head and threw this dangerous idea out of his mind. "There is no class in the afternoon, Draco. Do you want to try the new broom with me?" Ian asked, successfully changing the subject. "Okay." Draco nodded, then looked at Cassandra. "Cassandra, do you want to come with me?" "Of course." Cassandra nodded gracefully, then left the auditorium with Ian and the others. Shortly after they left, most of the people in the auditorium had left, leaving only the professors who were still leisurely eating lunch in the teacher's seat. "Severus, you gave Ian a Nimbus 2000? Professor McGonagall looked at Snape in surprise. "This is really unlike your character." Snape paused slightly while holding the knife and fork and said calmly, "I gave Draco one too, but Narcissa stopped him. She didn't let Draco ride the Nimbus 2000 too early. She was worried that the boy would be too excited." "Oh, Narcissa is still the same." Professor McGonagall laughed, then looked at Snape. "Ian is really popular. I saw that Wally and Malfoy both gave him one." Snape didn't say anything, but just looked at the food on the plate with a heavy look, not knowing what he was thinking. "Speaking of which, the child really looks like Lily," Professor McGonagall said with emotion. "Especially when he smiles, they are exactly the same." Snape tightened his hand holding the knife and fork slightly, and said in a low voice, "Yeah, very similar." Dumbledore smiled at Snape, and a glimmer of understanding flashed in his eyes. "Ian is a very smart kid," Dumbledore said softly. "He looks like Lily, doesn't he?" "Umph." Snape snorted and didn't answer, but his eyes looked towards the entrance of the auditorium involuntarily. There, Ian just left. Chapter 37 Pee-wee. After Ian and his two friends tried out the Nimbus 2000 on the Quidditch field, they ran into the Gryffindor trio as soon as they walked into the hall door. Ian looked at the three lions in red school uniforms opposite him, and then looked at the three green snakes on his side. He suddenly thought, could the three of them also be considered the Slytherin trio? Cool. So cool. Ronald looked at Ian's three broomsticks infatuatedly. "Ian, you actually have three Nimbus 2000s. Harry also said he would give you another one, so you would have four." "Wait, what did you say?" Ian interrupted Ronald's envy and turned to look at Harry. "Harry, you were going to give me a broomstick too?" Harry nodded embarrassedly. "Yes, Ronald said Nimbus 2000 is the best broomstick, so I thought about buying you one too." "No, Harry," Ian pointed to the three broomsticks behind him. "I already have three, and I really can't use them all." "For Nimbus 2000s, is he going to eat them all? Or does he have 8 legs like the acromantula?" If Harry really wants to give it to him, he might as well give it to him in cash. Ian's refusal made Hermione subconsciously pinch the corner of her clothes and sigh in her heart. It seems that Ian no longer needs a broomstick, so what else could she buy for Ian? Damn, too slow. That Wally has already given Ian one. Harry looked at the three brooms behind Ian and felt a little disappointed. "Well, I thought I could give you the best broom. Although I can't accept another broom, I received your kindness, Harry." Ian smiled and patted Harry on the shoulder. "Hey, curfew is coming soon. Let's go back quickly. Be careful not to be caught by Filch and deducted points." Cassandra stood aside with her arms around her chest, looking at Ian talking to the Gryffindor trio, and couldn't help but speak out. Ian heard this and turned to look at Cassandra, and then he realized that because of talking to Harry and the others, Cassandra and the others had been standing at the door of the hall without moving. "Then let's go together," Ian said as he walked into the castle. Seeing this, several people hurriedly followed and walked into the castle with Ian. "I should have known not to let you two try the broom." Cassandra covered her mouth and yawned gracefully. "I'm so sleepy now. If Filch catches us, I'll make sure you guys are in trouble." "We won't be caught." "How can we be so unlucky, miss? You are just a mediocre person." Before Ian finished speaking, Ronald, who was walking in the front, suddenly stopped and turned his head to look behind him. His face was pale, as if he saw something scary. "What's wrong, Ronald?" Harry asked curiously. Ronald pointed behind Harry with trembling hands. "Peeves?" "Harry, we're done." When Harry and others heard the word Peeves, their faces changed. They turned their heads and saw Peeves floating in the air. Peeves was grinning at them at this time, with a naughty and prank-like excitement on his face. "Oh, look who is this," Peeves said with a smile. "A bunch of little snakes and little lions? Hee hee, you dare to wander outside during curfew time. Peeves will catch you all and bring you to Professor McGonagall." "Peeves, please let us go," Hermione said with a bitter face. "We really didn't mean it. We just forgot the time when testing the flying broom." "Huh, why should I let you go?" Peeves said with his eyes wide open. "I am the discipline committee of Hogwarts. You just wait to be punished by Professor McGonagall." Ian, Hermione, and Cassandra subconsciously leaned towards Ian, their faces full of worry. "Peeves, be careful or I'll call the Bloody Baron." Ian looked at Peeves expressionlessly, not caring about his threat at all. "I think you should know how much the Bloody Baron is willing to teach you a lesson, right?" Sure enough, when he heard the word Bloody Baron, Peeves' face suddenly changed, and a look of horror appeared on his face. "Who is the Bloody Baron?" Harry asked curiously when he saw that Peeves was afraid of someone. "The Bloody Baron is the ghost of Slytherin," Draco explained in a low voice. "He is also the one that Peeves fears the most, no doubt about it." "The one that he fears the most?" Ronald's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Ian, call Mr. Bloody Baron quickly. Teach Peeves a lesson and let him know that we little wizards are not easy to mess with." Peeves was still terrified, and when he heard this, he immediately shouted angrily, "Mr. Peeves will punish you. "You bunch of annoying little wizards." Peeves' loud noise immediately attracted the attention of Filch not far away. "Who's there?" "Run!" Harry shouted, pulling Draco and Ian beside him and turned to run. Hermione and Cassandra saw this and hurriedly followed, and Ronald did the same. For a while, Peeves was the only one left in the corridor. "Oh no, there is another Filch. Damn little wizards," Peeves cursed, then quickly floated in front of Filch, pointed in the direction where Ian and others left, and shouted, "Filch, catch them. They violated curfew." Filch's face suddenly darkened when he heard this, and he quickly chased after them with a flashlight. "Damn little wizards, stop right there," Filch shouted as he chased. Ian and others turned a deaf ear to him, but instead sped up, moving quickly in the castle, trying to get rid of Filch behind them. "I say, stop running. Why are you running? I'll cast an illusion spell on you." Before Ian could finish his words, the leader Harry led a few people to a locked door in the corridor on the 4th floor. "Why is the door still locked?" Harry pushed hard, but it didn't move. Ian just said no. In his heart, Hermione had already pushed Harry, who was standing in front of him, holding a magic wand, and walked forward. "Get out of the way. Let me do it. Allah, open it." As Hermione's voice fell, a flash of light flashed on the door lock, followed by a click, and the door lock opened. "Great, Hermione," Harry praised, and then pushed the door and walked in. Ian looked at the backs of several people, smiled bitterly, and could only follow them in. "Forget it. Just go in. You will definitely not die. Dumbledore will definitely not let the three-headed dog hurt the little wizard. He will only let the three-headed dog scare them away." Chapter 38, Three-Headed Dog. Several people hid inside the door, listening to Filch's footsteps gradually fading away outside the door, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. "Great, we finally got rid of Filch." Harry wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "Yeah, this time it's really thanks to Hermione." Draco also nodded. Hermione raised her chin slightly. "Nothing. It's just a simple unlocking spell." "But why is this room locked?" Ronald suddenly asked. "Not many people will come to the corridor on the 4th floor. By the way, don't you smell a stinky smell?" Cassandra covered her nose and said with disgust. Ian turned around and looked at the drooling three-headed dog and said faintly, "I think there must be a reason why this door is locked, and this reason is behind us." Hearing this, several people turned around and looked, and then saw the drooling three-headed dog behind them, staring at them with a covetous look. "Run!" someone shouted, and then everyone ran towards the door. However, they were still a step too late. The three-headed dog pounced on them, and with a wave of its huge claws, it closed the door directly. The few people could only huddle in a small corner, holding their wands and looking at the behemoth in front of them. "What should we do?" "Ian." Draco looked at Ian with a pale face. "Will we die here?" Cassandra grabbed Ian's clothes, her voice trembling. "Ian, what should we do?" Hermione saw this and hugged Ian's waist directly. Ian's mouth twitched, and he looked at the two helplessly. "Are you all scared now? Then who suggested running here just now?" Everyone looked at Harry and pointed at him. "Howdy." "Well, I didn't know there was such a monster locked in this room," Harry said with a bitter face. "If I knew, I would never come in." "It's useless to say all this now. Let's think about how to get out." Hermione took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. "Ian, do you have any ideas?" "Don't worry. If it wants to eat us, it would have eaten us while we were talking." Ian looked at the three-headed dog's sturdy limbs and sighed. "It may just want to trap us here and then tip off its owner." Hearing this, Draco and Cassandra were relieved. "As long as they don't die for the time being, it's fine," Ronald said with a sad face. "What should we do now?" "Just wait here." Ian silently called the system in his heart. "System, exchange me a magical animal affinity of the same type as Newt." Ding. The host has deducted 20 heart points. The magical animal affinity has been successfully exchanged. As the system finished speaking, Ian felt that his body seemed to have changed, but it seemed that nothing had changed. Ian took a tentative step forward and stretched out his hand to the three-headed dog. Then he saw that the three-headed dog, which was originally staring at him, put away its sharp claws and fangs and suddenly wagged its tail and the fierceness in its eyes turned into intimacy. One of its heads even came close to Ian and gently rubbed his cheek. Everyone was stunned by this scene. It seems to like you very much. Hermione looked at Ian in shock. How did you do it? Ian raised his eyebrows. Maybe it's because I'm more handsome? Yeah, that makes sense. Hermione and Cassandra looked at each other and nodded seriously at the same time. Indeed, good-looking people are always more popular. Draco and Harry and Ronald, it doesn't seem like the time to focus on this now, right? Ian reached out and patted one of the three-headed dog's heads gently. Good boy. Can you let us out? We got here by mistake. The three-headed dog seemed to understand what Ian said, whimpered softly, then turned around and nudged the door behind him with his head. With a click, the door that was originally closed by the three-headed dog was easily pushed open by it. Ian looked outside the door, then turned his head to look at the three-headed dog. Well, can we go out? The three-headed dog whimpered again and nudged Ian gently with its head, as if urging him to leave quickly. Okay, we'll leave right away and won't come again. Ian smiled, thank you. After that, Ian let a few people out of the room and returned to the corridor. It was not until they returned to the corridor that they finally felt like they had survived a disaster. Great, we're finally out. Draco leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Ronald also said with some fear, yeah, I thought we were dead. Why would the school let such a scary thing in? What are your eyes for? Hermione rolled her eyes. Didn't you see that there was a trapdoor under the three-headed dog? It must be guarding something important. Cassandra also agreed. Granger is right. The school will not put such a dangerous creature here unless there is something worth guarding here. What could it be? Harry murmured. Whatever it is guarding, it's none of our business. Hermione said seriously, what happened just now has taught us a lesson. Don't get involved in things that you shouldn't get involved in. Be careful not to get your life involved. That's right. If it weren't for Ian, we would have really died in the mouth of the three-headed dog. Cassandra crossed her arms. Besides, we have promised the three-headed dog that we won't come again. Harry, no matter what the three-headed dog is guarding, we shouldn't think about it now. Ian looked at Harry and said meaningfully, curiosity sometimes kills the cat. Harry was silent for a long time after hearing this, and finally said, Okay, since you all said that, I won't think about this place anymore. Okay, let's go back to bed quickly. We have classes tomorrow morning. Ian stretched. I'm so sleepy. Several people nodded, divided into two groups, and each returned to their own college. The next morning, Ian woke up early, washed up, and went to the Great Hall with Draco to have breakfast. Because of what happened last night, everyone was a little listless, especially Harry, who had dark circles under his eyes. Obviously, he didn't sleep well last night. Hey, Harry, what nightmare did you have last night? Ronald asked vaguely while stuffing sausage into his mouth. Are you still thinking about the three-headed dog? Harry said listlessly. I dreamed that I was chased by the three-headed dog all night last night. It was so scary. Don't worry, Harry. With Ian here, the three-headed dog won't hurt us. Hermione took a sip of pumpkin juice. But we can't go there again. After all, we have promised it. I know, Harry sighed. I'm just a little curious about what it is guarding. Don't be curious. Hermione glared at Harry. Curiosity kills the cat. Have you forgotten? Harry suddenly wilted. I didn't forget. Anyway, you should listen to Ian more, Harry. Hermione said seriously. Ian's words must be right. He is always right. Harry, if I remember correctly, he is the older brother, right? Why does it feel like his and Ian's identities have been reversed? Harry, eat quickly. We have a herbology class later. Ronald held a big chicken drumstick in each hand, his cheeks bulging like a hamster. If you don't eat quickly, it will be too late. Harry immediately stopped thinking about anything else and started eating in big mouthfuls. There is no rush for the three-headed dog. He will know what the three-headed dog is guarding one day. Chapter 39, Herbal Medicine Class and Devil Snare. After breakfast, Ian and his friends went to the herbology classroom. The herbology classroom is in a greenhouse behind the castle, which is full of various magical plants, dazzling to the eyes. Herbology is taught by Professor Sprout, a very amiable witch who always smiles and makes people feel friendly. Professor Sprout gave each student a straw hat to wear on their heads to prevent sunburn. Professor Sprout stood in front of the greenhouse and said loudly, "Today we are going to learn about a very interesting vine plant, devil's snare. Who can tell me what the devil's snare is used for?" Professor Sprout asked, scanning the little wizards. Hermione immediately raised her hand and stood up. Devil's snare can be used to make binding potions, making the bound person unable to move. Excellent, Miss Granger. 10 points for Gryffindor. Your answer is completely correct. Professor Sprout praised with a smile. Then, who can tell me what is the biggest feature of the devil's snare? Professor, I know. Ian raised his hand. The biggest feature of the devil's snare is that it only binds living objects and will leave inanimate objects alone. In other words, if we stay still, it will not actively attack us. Absolutely correct, Mr. Potter. 10 points for Slytherin. Professor Sprout nodded with satisfaction. It seems that you have all prepared well before class. Not bad. Not bad. Well, let's do it now, Professor Sprout said, and took the students to the greenhouse. Professor Sprout led the little wizards to the darkest corner of the greenhouse, and finally stopped in front of an immature devil's snare. Now, you need to form groups freely, with a maximum of 7 people in each group, and a minimum of 4 people. Professor Sprout said, and took out a small basket. There are some red fruits in the devil's snare. You need to pick all these fruits and put them in the basket, but remember, the devil's snare will actively attack living objects. You need to find a way to make it quiet down before picking them. The group that picks the fruits the fastest will get extra points, and my private collection, some rare magic seeds. The students began to form groups freely, and Ian and his friends were naturally assigned to a group. I say, can we really explore what is under the trapdoor? Harry stood in front of the devil's snare, looking at the green vines, and whispered to Ian, "You can't be curious." Ian refused without hesitation. "We have already promised the 3-headed dog. Don't go and do something stupid." Seeing that Harry wanted to say something, Ian said again, "Harry, we are in Hogwarts now, not at home. We can't do whatever we want." "That's right." Draco stretched his green tie and glanced at Harry. "I now think the Sorting Hat is right. At least Ian won't be as impulsive as you." "Well, let's not talk about anything else." Ian does have the Slytherin's self-preservation mentality. Cassandra nodded in agreement. Then Hermione is also a Gryffindor. Didn't she also disagree to explore the secret of the trapdoor? Harry muttered softly. Hermione turned her head away awkwardly. She was actually very curious, but she was worried about Gryffindor deductions and Ian's persuasion, so she held back and didn't go. "Okay, let's find a way to pick the fruit from the devil's snare." Ian interrupted Harry and Draco's quarrel. "Don't forget that we are here for herbology class, not to discuss whether to go on an adventure." Harry stopped talking immediately and began to concentrate on dealing with the devil's snare. With Hermione as an encyclopedia, they quickly thought of a way to quickly get the fruit through the devil's snare, shining it with strong sunlight or fire. Devil's snare is a shade-loving plant. Once exposed to sunlight, it will immediately become sluggish and stop attacking them. The question is, where can we find strong sunlight and fire? Ronald pointed to the environment they were in and said with a bitter face, "It's so dark here, and the sunlight can't shine in." "Weasley, where's your brain?" Draco looked at Ronald with disgust. "There is no sunlight here, but we are wizards. We can use spells. Are you stupid?" "Malfoy, you say it so easily. Then come on, can you do it?" Ronald rolled his eyes and said unhappily. Draco choked immediately. He didn't know any spells to create sunlight. He just simply couldn't stand Weasley. "Ian will definitely do it." Draco pushed Ian out with confidence. "Right, Ian?" "Ian, no, you are bragging. Let me take the responsibility." Ian looked at Draco speechlessly, then waved his wand. Lumos. A bright white light immediately appeared at the tip of his wand, illuminating the surroundings as if it were daytime. Under the strong light, the devil's snare quickly shrank like an eggplant hit by frost, revealing the red fruit hidden inside. "Ian, I knew you could do it." Draco patted Ian's shoulder proudly. "Come on, let's pick all the fruits." Ian put away his wand, and the devil's snare immediately regained its vitality. "Wait a minute. It doesn't take so many people to pick the fruits of the devil's snare. 2 or 3 people are enough. The rest of the people go to other groups to see. If other groups also think of using light to illuminate, we will use fire. We can always be faster than them. Yes, Ian is right. Hermione nodded in agreement, put her hands on her hips, and commanded. Ian and I will be responsible for picking. You four go to other groups to inquire about the situation and come back to inform us immediately if there is news. Cassandra crossed her arms in front of her chest and raised her chin. I will stay too. You 3 go to other groups to inquire about the situation. Okay. Draco nodded under the pressure of Cassandra and then waved to Harry and Ronald. You 2. Follow me to other groups to see. Ronald didn't want to go with Draco, but Harry had already followed, so he had to follow reluctantly. Ian looked at the backs of the 3 people leaving and wanted to ask them to take him away with them, but feeling the 2 strong lights around him, he decisively chose to stay. Sometimes, being sandwiched between 2 beautiful little witches is also a sweet burden. Under the double attack of Cassandra and Hermione, Ian could only do 3 things at the same time: fluorescent flashing, picking the fruits of the devil's snare, and answering the questions of the 2 little witches. By the way, Ian, what is your favorite color? Cassandra suddenly asked. Green. Silver is also okay. The iconic color of our school. I like it very much. Ian answered casually, and then turned to explain the growth habits of the devil's snare to Hermione. Green and silver. Cassandra murmured and nodded thoughtfully. Then she could give Ian a green scarf for Christmas, so that every time he wears a scarf, he can think of her. Ian didn't notice Cassandra's strangeness. He was busy talking to Hermione and didn't expect Cassandra to think about other places because of his words. Chapter 40 Lucky Clover. When Draco and the other 2 came back from finding out the news, Ian and his team had already picked more than half of the red fruits. How is it? What about the other groups? Ian asked Draco while putting the fruits into the basket. TSK. Theodore and the other 4 also thought of using the sunlight, and Theodore just learned fluorescent flashing. Draco curled his lips and said a little unhappy. We have to move faster. Their group is also picking them quickly. It's okay. I'm here. I guarantee the first place. Ian raised his eyebrows, aimed at the devil's snare, and shook his wand. Flame. In an instant, a flame sprayed out from the tip of Ian's wand, reflecting their faces red. Under the burning of the flame, the devil's snare made a crackling sound and wilted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ian's fire curse directly amazed everyone. They didn't expect that Ian had already mastered this spell. Cool. Draco looked at the rising flames and said sincerely, This is really cool. Ian pressed his mouth and smiled reservedly. Okay, hurry up and pick the fruits. With the help of Ian's fire spell, they quickly picked the remaining devil's snare fruits, and then Hermione cast a levitation spell, and a group of people flew towards Professor Sprout. Professor Sprout was rescuing the little wizards trapped in the devil's snare. Seeing Ian and his friends coming, she pushed her glasses and said in surprise, Oh, it seems that you have successfully found a way to crack the devil's snare. You are really smart. Thanks to Ian, he thought of using light and fire to deal with the devil's snare. Hermione said with a smile, Well done, Ian. Professor Sprout patted Ian's shoulder approvingly. You are very skilled in the use of spells. It seems that you have learned very well in the spells class. Ian was a little embarrassed to be praised by the professor. He smiled modestly. Professor, you are too kind. I just like to study spells. Professor Sprout praised Ian a few more times, then looked at the red fruits in their baskets and nodded. Then I will add 10 points to Slytherin and Gryffindor. Professor, what are these fruits used for? Ronald asked curiously. This is the raw material of a potion. Professor Sprout explained, and took out 7 magic seeds and cultivation manuals that she treasured. As a reward, I will give each of you a lucky clover seed. Please take good care of it. It will bring you surprises. Lucky clover? Professor, what is its use when it matures? Will it bring us luck? Harry asked. Mr. Potter, you can understand it this way. Professor Sprout smiled. When the lucky clover matures, make some small wishes to it, and it will help you realize it with a certain probability. Of course, this is not just as simple as bringing luck. You will know when you grow it. Ian stared at the unprepossessing seeds in his hand. His eyes were a little doubtful, Lucky clover. Is this one of the raw materials for the lucky spirit potion? He vaguely remembered that the lucky clover was included in the formula of the lucky spirit potion, and it was very rare. Ian stroked the seed in his hand, his eyes flickered. Lucky spirit potion. Then this lucky clover is a good thing. Professor Sprout is very secretive. Taking out 7 seeds at once is really a big deal. When I thought of this, Ian looked at Professor Sprout with a burning look. Professor, can I come here to help you take care of magic plants? Do you think I still have a chance? Professor Sprout has good things in his hands. These good things are suitable for rewarding excellent students like him. Professor Sprout was stunned by Ian's burning gaze, then laughed. Of course, Ian, you can come here to help me take care of these magic plants when you are free, but why are you so active all of a sudden? In order to enrich my knowledge of magic plants, Professor, I am willing to dedicate my precious free time. Ian patted his chest righteously. Besides, it must be very hard for you to take care of these plants alone. If I help you, you can also relax a little. Haha. Then it's settled. You can come to me every Wednesday afternoon. Professor Sprout was coaxed very happily and said with a smile, Ian, you can start with those dangerous plants that first-year students can't touch. I will explain their habits to you. Thank you, Professor. You are so nice. Ian showed a bright smile on his face, and the joy in his eyes almost overflowed. As a reward for helping the professor, Professor Sprout looked at Ian's sparkling eyes and found it a little funny. After thinking for a while, he said, How about this? I will give you a magic plant every month. How about it? Great, Professor. Ian jumped up excitedly and looked at Professor Sprout with gratitude. Professor, you are such a generous professor. Professor Sprout is such a good person. He will definitely help him collect all the raw materials for the elixir, right? Merlin will praise you. Professor. Ian looked at Professor Sprout, his eyes bright. I have never seen a professor as generous as you. Flattery never wears out. Professor Sprout was coaxed to laugh by Ian and wave his hand in a good mood. Since your group has completed the task, let's end the get out of class early now. Okay, Professor. Ian responded with a smile and then winked at Hermione and the others, and a group of people left greenhouse number 3 happily. Ian, why do you suddenly want to help Professor Sprout take care of magical plants? Hermione couldn't help asking as soon as she left greenhouse number 3. Isn't it obvious? Because Professor Sprout will reward him with rare magic seeds. Cassandra crossed her arms. Her eyes were a little subtle. Huh, it's really Potter from Slytherin. Ian touched the tip of his nose and smiled awkwardly. How can you say that? I'm also helping the professor. Of course, if the professor is willing to give me some rewards, I am also willing to accept it. You are quite honest at this time. Cassandra chuckled, turned around, and left with the book. Let's go back to the castle. She wanted to cultivate the lucky clover quickly, and she didn't know if it would work if she made a wish to it to confess her love. Looking at Cassandra's back, Ronald touched his head, a little confused. Why is she so weird? Don't worry about her. Let's go back quickly. I can't wait to plant the lucky clover. Harry's eyes flashed with excitement. If the lucky clover can help me escape Snape's potion homework. Don't dream, Harry. Ian ruthlessly broke his fantasy. The lucky clover only has the probability of fulfilling some small wishes. Don't daydream. Harry sighed in disappointment. Okay, I know. The group returned to the castle with laughter. This is what the Potter boy has done these days. Although this boy seems to be kind, he is also a pure Slytherin. The portrait of Phineas was reporting to the thoughtful Dumbledore. Dumbledore suddenly laughed, but he is very honest. Miss Wally saw through him, and he did not hide it, right? Phineas was stunned, then nodded. Indeed, although this kid is a bit cunning like Slytherin, he is indeed much kinder than other Slytherins. If you ask me, you just think too much. The portrait of Principal Dilly's Devante suddenly appeared. What a good child, in my opinion. He is much more sensible than his brother. It is really confusing for you to be suspicious of a child like this. Devante, have you forgotten that, Tom? He was also a sensible and excellent child. Principal Armando Dipet sighed. Dilly sneered. Yes, you like him so much at that time that you almost gave him the position of defense against the dark arts. Armando was speechless and sighed helplessly. Who would have thought that a child would be so scheming? He disguised himself so well and fooled all of us. Dumbledore coughed lightly, and Armando immediately changed his words. Okay, except Dumbledore. So, you plan to be wary of all Slytherins? Deli said angrily. Didn't you see what Ian did these days? He's a kind and good child. Don't always be suspicious. Ian is of course a good child. No one denies that. Dumbledore said with a smile. We are not targeting him, but we are a little worried that he will be influenced by some bad ideas. You just think too much. Delis glared at Armando, then looked at Dumbledore. Ian is a good child at first glance. You must not listen to him, Armando, this old fool. Of course, I will keep my own judgment. Dumbledore smiled at Principal Delis. Ian is indeed a good boy. I will pay attention to him and make sure he doesn't go astray. Humph. Deli snorted and said nothing more. As a retired old principal, she couldn't control too much. The portraits became quiet again, with only occasional sighs echoing in the castle. Chapter 41, Wingardium Leviosa. As time went by, Ian gradually got used to life in Hogwarts. Every day he went to class, practiced magic, flirted with the little witch, and occasionally went to the kitchen to ask the house elves for snacks. His life was leisurely and comfortable. Children, today we're going to learn the levitation spell. Professor Flitwick stood on a special stool. As a wizard, one of the basic skills is levitation, which means having the ability to make objects fly. On the podium, a shrill voice echoed in the classroom. Did everyone get the feather? As soon as Professor Flitwick finished speaking, Hermione actively raised the feather. Very good. Professor Flitwick nodded with a smile. When you cast a spell, you must remember the wrist movement. Wave first, then shake. Professor Flitwick said, rolling up his long silver cuffs, revealing his slender arms. He picked up the wand and waved it lightly, and a book suddenly flew up from the corner of the classroom. Ian was still distracted, and when he saw this hand, his eyes lit up instantly. Silent casting. Should he go to Professor Flitwick, the spell master, to learn from him? So that he can master silent casting or even wandless casting as soon as possible. Everyone should remember the spell, Wingardium Leviosa. Professor Flitwick whispered a spell, and the book flew in the air and landed gently on the podium. Now, try it yourself. Use the magic wand to chant the spell to the feather, and try to make it fly. Professor Flitwick said, this spell is very practical. I hope you can all master it. Ian picked up the magic wand and waved it at the feather in front of him. Wingardium Leviosa. The feather was controlled by Ian to float towards Hermione on the right, and rolled a few times in front of the little witch with a teasing meaning. Ian. Hermione glared at Ian coquettishly. Her little face flushed, not knowing whether she was angry that he showed off his spell level or embarrassed by his ambiguous behavior. Ian chuckled and stopped teasing her. He controlled the feather to float to Miss Wally on the left and circled around her. The lady raised her chin slightly, seeming to be very satisfied with Ian's performance. Huh, childish. Cassandra reached out to pinch the feather, but couldn't help but slightly raise the corner of her mouth. I confiscated the tools used in the crime. Ian glanced at Hermione, who was practicing spells seriously. Just as he wanted to take the opportunity to say a few more witty words to Cassandra, he heard Professor Flitwick at the podium exclaiming in admiration. Very good. It seems that our Mr. Potter has successfully mastered the levitation spell and is very skilled. Professor Flitwick looked at Ian as if he was looking at a precious egg. Slytherin plus 10 points. Although he had long known that this child was gifted and used the levitation spell to save the Longbottom child, he couldn't help but be amazed every time he saw this child skillfully using spells. This is not a first-year wizard, hey. How come such an excellent child is not from their Ravenclaw? Hearing Professor Flitwick's words, the little wizards in the classroom all looked at Ian, their eyes full of envy. Ian had long been immune to the professor's praise, and his handsome face once again put on his signature smile. Thank you for your compliments, Professor. Leaving a good impression on the professors and raising his reputation in Hogwarts is one of his important tasks. Professor Flitwick looked at Ian with satisfaction. This child was so outstanding that he could not find any faults at all. Wingardium Leviosa. Hermione and Cassandra also recited spells one after another, and the feathers in front of them also floated up. It seems that our little witches are not to be outdone, Professor Flitwick said with a smile. Gryffindor plus 5 points, Slytherin plus 5 points. The two little witches who were called smiled, especially Cassandra, who raised her chin even higher. That's great. Ian looked at Cassandra with a smile. It seems that our eldest lady is also very capable. Of course, Cassandra said proudly. I'm a genius. Of course, you are indeed a genius. Ian gestured and said seriously, but you are a little bit worse than me. Potter. Cassandra's eyes widened with anger. But thinking of the other party's strength, she had to admit that the other party was indeed more talented than her. Humph. Cassandra snorted lightly and turned her head away from Ian. Come on. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. You even pronounced the spell wrong. You're the smartest, okay? Miss Know-It-All. Ian listened to the noise, turned his head, and saw Hermione and Ronald quarreling. Hey, Ronald, don't talk to Hermione like that. Harry quickly dissuaded. Harry had seen the dangerous look in his brother Ian's eyes. If he didn't stop Ronald, he had no doubt that Ian would rush up and beat Ronald up. During the time studying at Hogwarts, Harry knew the character of his twin brother very well. Although Ian always smiles and looks easy to get along with, Harry knows that the premise of getting along well is that you don't provoke him. Obviously, someone makes Hermione unhappy is included in the scope of provoking him by Ian. Stop arguing, Ronald. Before Ian got angry, Harry quickly covered Ronald's mouth and turned to Hermione and said, Hermione, you are so awesome. You are so great. Hearing Harry's sincere praise, Hermione's face looked better. Ian took a deep look at Ronald, as if to say, you kid, try to make Hermione angry again. Although he needs to maintain his title of savior in front of others, he doesn't mind using his wand to teach some people what respect means. He believes that even if Dumbledore knew, he would only think that he was angry for his beloved. Ronald shuddered at Ian's eyes and immediately lost his temper. In addition to Harry's warning to him just now, he didn't dare to say anything else. Ian was very satisfied with Ronald's understanding. He turned his head and looked at Hermione gently. Our Hermione is the smartest little witch I have ever seen. Hermione blushed immediately after being praised by her lover and whispered, Ian. Cassandra stared at Ian's red-haired head with dissatisfaction. The smartest? The one he had ever seen? Huh. Potter with no taste. Ahem. Cassandra couldn't stand Ian and Hermione flirting as if no one was around. She coughed lightly and forced a wave of presence. Ian tilted his head. What's wrong? Mississippi. Humph. Cassandra snorted and turned her head away. Stupid Potter. Why did you call me Potter again? Ian scratched his head in confusion, but he knew in his heart that this was the jealous lady. As a master of keeping things in balance, Ian was also very distressed. He couldn't ignore his childhood sweetheart, genuine girlfriend, because of his new love, right? However, Cassandra didn't seem to be generous enough, seeing that he didn't react to Hermione's flirting. But Ian Potter, he is destined to be a romantic man. Chapter 42. The Potter family's industry after the spell class. Ian was still surrounded by two beautiful little witches. Ian, what do you think of my spells? Cassandra asked seemingly indifferently. Excellent. Cassandra, Ian answered without thinking. You are worthy of being our Miss Volley. Listening to Ian's praise, Cassandra smiled proudly at Hermione. See, Granger, Ian still cares more about me. Hermione glared back. She grabbed Ian's other arm. Ian, let's go to the library to read. Cassandra grabbed Ian's clothes. Ian, didn't you say you were going to practice Quidditch? Looking at the two little witches in front of him, Ian felt a headache. Ian, the two little witches shouted at the same time. Ian swallowed his saliva and smiled dryly. I remembered. I still have to go to Professor Snape to ask about the potion. I'll leave first. Goodbye. After saying that, Ian didn't dare to look at their reactions at all and turned around and ran. He was afraid that if he was a step later, he would be killed by the eyes of the two little witches. Looking at Ian's fleeing back, Cassandra and Hermione looked at each other and went to find their friends in the same college. However, the atmosphere on Cassandra's side was still good, while Hermione's side was a little low. "It's Leviosa, not Leviosa," Ronald and Harry complained. "Do you think she needs to be so serious?" Harry was anxious when he heard Ronald say that. He quickly covered Ronald's mouth and whispered in his ear, "You don't want to live? You dare to say bad things about Hermione. If Ian hears it, you will be in trouble." Ronald pulled Harry's hand away and muttered softly, "I didn't say anything wrong." Harry rolled his eyes. "Yes, you are right. But don't forget that Ian likes Hermione." "So what?" Ronald shouted with his neck stiff. "Can Ian beat me for her?" "What else?" Harry spread his hands, a little helpless. "Which do you think is more important, a girlfriend or a friend?" Ronald kept talking for a long time, but couldn't say anything. Of course he knew that for Ian, Hermione, the girlfriend, must be more important. "I'm serious, Harry. You should have stopped Ian from being with her. That Thorn. No wonder she doesn't have many female friends in Gryffindor." Ronald said angrily, "I don't know how Ian tolerates her. In my opinion, Cassandra is much better than her." Listening to Ronald's increasingly outrageous words, Harry felt his scalp tingling, and he quickly looked around, fearing that Hermione was nearby. But as the saying goes, the more you fear something, the more it will come. Harry glanced at Hermione with red eyes behind him and shouted in his heart that it was not good. "Hermione!" Harry turned around carefully, looking at Hermione with slightly red eyes, and cursed Ronald in his heart. "Ronald, this guy. Tell him not to talk nonsense. Tell him to talk nonsense." Hermione ignored Harry, pushed the two away, and ran away with tears in her eyes. "It's over." Harry stared at Hermione's back and felt that the sky had fallen. Ian shouldn't beat him, his own brother, right? He did persuade him. "Ronald, you should go and apologize to Hermione." "I'll apologize at the dinner." Ronald wanted to argue, but when he thought of Ian's gloomy face, he immediately changed his mind. Harry sighed, and seeing Ronald's cowardly look, he patted him on the shoulder. "Brother, you're on your own." On the other side, Ian, who had successfully escaped from death, stood at the door of the cellar and took a deep breath. He reached out and knocked on the door of the cellar. "Come in." Snape's low voice came from inside the door. Ian pushed the door open, looked at Snape, who was brewing potions in the room, and whispered, "Professor." Snape ignored Ian and put the herbs in his hand into the crucible. Ian didn't care. He walked to Snape and handled the herbs skillfully. "Professor, what potion are you brewing?" "Felixer," Snape answered without looking up. Ian stared at the golden potion brewing in the pot and said casually, "It's Felixer. Speaking of which, I got several raw materials for brewing Felixer from Professor Sprout in the past 2 months." Snape paused and glanced at the boy beside him. "The raw materials for Felixer are hard to find. If you have collected them all, you can come to me to brew Felixer." "Thank you, Professor." Ian didn't give Snape a chance to regret and agreed. "Nonsense. He, a first-year wizard, can't brew Felixer now, although he can buy talents from the system. He doesn't have money now. It's better to find the most powerful potion master of the century as free labor. Get twice the result with half the effort. You should know that the brewing process of Felix Felix is extremely complicated, takes up to half a year, and has a very high failure rate." Horace Slughorn, former Slytherin dean and potions professor, as a top potion master, only used it twice in his life. This shows how precious Felix Felix is. "By the way, Professor, what gift do you want for Christmas?" Ian asked suddenly. Snape paused holding the stirring stick and turned to look at the boy beside him, frowning. "What are you planning?" "I don't have any." Ian blinked, and a sly smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "I want to give the professor a gift." Snape stared at Ian's clear green eyes for a while, snorted, and turned his head away. "I don't need you to give me a gift. How about I give you a few bottles of magic shampoo?" Ian looked at Snape's greasy long hair with an unspeakable expression. "I think your hair is a little oily. You need a bottle of oil-controlling and fluffy shampoo. I remember Professor McGonagall told me that our Potter family is so rich. A big part of the reason is because my grandfather, Fremont Potter, invented the hair conditioning potion and sold well, which quadrupled the family property. Ian grinned. Professor, do you need it? Snape's forehead was throbbing with veins. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, Ian Potter. At this moment, he was just as worthy of a beating as that damn James Potter. Ian smiled awkwardly. Professor, I was joking. Joking? Snape stared at Ian with a gloomy face. If he believed this kid, he would be as stupid as the failed potion. Snape took a few deep breaths, silently said a few words, this is Lily's child, and resisted the urge to throw Ian into the crucible. If you have nothing else to do, go to the hall. The dinner should be about to start. Professor, Ian touched the tip of his nose. I actually want to ask you, do you know who owns the Potter family's property now? After all, Harry and I have only returned to the wizarding world not long ago, and we don't know much about the family situation. Ever since Professor McGonagall told him that his family also had a super profitable hair conditioner factory, he wanted to take back all the Potter family's properties. He guessed that Harry would not compete with his brother, who had been alone and helpless since childhood and live alone in an orphanage, for the family property. Hearing this, Snape's face looked better. He thought for a moment and replied, Your family's property should be managed by the house elves of the Potter family. Do we have house elves? Ian looked up in surprise. Why haven't I seen them? It's been 2 months since Harry and I returned to the magical world, and we haven't seen house elves come to us. You go to school at Hogwarts. Will the house elves come to the school to find you? Snape's venom began to attack the little wizard again. Your poor professor doesn't even know that the young master of the Potter family is so grand. Ian, he glanced at Snape silently and chose to shut up. Forget it. I've already provoked Snape twice today, so don't step on landmines again. Seeing Ian didn't say anything, Snape snorted coldly. If you want to take over the Potter family's property, you can go to Dumbledore and ask him to take you to the Potter family's old house. You should know that the house elves are very loyal to the family. If they don't see you two brothers, they will not hand over the property. Okay, Professor. Ian nodded. I will go to Professor Dumbledore. Humph. It's late. Go to the dinner. Snape snorted coldly, without even looking at Ian. Remember to close the door when you go out. Okay. Goodbye, Professor. Chapter 43, Halloween Dinner. Ian exited Snape's office and headed straight to Dumbledore's office. He stood in front of the stone monster and whispered, Fizzy Bee Candy. Wrong password, the stone monster said coldly. Old Dumbledore changed the password? Ian was stunned. He frowned and thought for a while, then said to the stone monster again, Cockroach pile. Correct password. The stone monster jumped aside, revealing the passage below. You can go in. Ian walked through the passage, climbed the stairs, and came to the door of the principal's office. He knocked on the door and shouted, Professor Dumbledore, I'm Ian. Oh, it's Ian. Come in quickly. Dumbledore's gentle voice came from inside the door. Ian pushed open the door and saw Dumbledore standing in front of the window, holding a small golden plate in his hand, which was full of sizzling bees. Hearing the sound, Dumbledore turned around and said with a smile, Ian, what do you want to do with me? Yes, Professor. Ian nodded. I would like to trouble you to take me and Harry back to the old house of the Potter family. Back to the old house of the Potter family? Dumbledore was slightly stunned, then laughed. Of course, Ian, but you have to tell me what you are going to do when you go back. I want to collect all the properties of the Potter family. Ian did not hide it and said bluntly, But Professor Snape said that our family's properties are all managed by house elves, so I need to go back to the old house. Oh, is that so? Dumbledore smiled and nodded. How about this? I will take you and Harry back to the old house of the Potter family at Christmas. How about it? Of course, Professor Dumbledore. Ian thought about it and felt that Dumbledore's suggestion was not bad, so he nodded and agreed. Then go back at Christmas. Okay, Ian, I will arrange this matter. Dumbledore smiled and said, It's getting late. Let's go to the Halloween dinner. I think the food tonight will not disappoint you. Okay, Professor Dumbledore, goodbye. Ian nodded, turned, and walked towards the door, then suddenly stopped and turned to look at Dumbledore. Professor Dumbledore, see you at the dinner. Dumbledore smiled and waved. See you at the dinner, Ian. After Ian left, the portraits in the headmaster's office opened their eyes one after another. talking to each other. This kid is quite direct. He actually came directly to ask for the Potter family's property. Headmaster Armando Dippet said, I said that the sorting hat didn't sort that kid into the wrong house. Our Slytherin children always put interests first. Phineas Black said slowly. Dumbledore smiled and said nothing. After Ian left the headmaster's office, he went straight to the auditorium. At this time, the hall was already full of students. Ian glanced at the Slytherin table and saw Draco waving at him. He walked over quickly and sat down in the empty seat next to Draco. Potter. Cassandra glanced at Ian. What's wrong, miss? Ian stretched out his long arm and put on the back of Cassandra's chair as if he was holding her in his arms. Cassandra paused, and her ears gradually turned red. Draco, who was standing by, looked at Ian in horror. No. This, he hugged her now. Cassandra didn't even resist. You? Cassandra pursed her lips and looked at Ian, hesitant to say anything. Ian, I heard that, Greg. Before Cassandra finished her words, she was interrupted by the sound of the hall door opening. Sorry, Cassandra, let's talk later. Ian patted Cassandra's shoulder, then turned his head and looked in the direction of the hall door. Dumbledore was standing in front of the door, smiling at the young wizards present. Then he clapped his hands and said, Everyone be quiet. We are now officially starting the dinner. As Dumbledore finished speaking, colorful fireworks suddenly burst out from the ceiling of the hall, and the little wizards looked up and exclaimed. After Dumbledore announced the start of the dinner, plates of delicious food suddenly appeared on the long table. Ian glanced and saw many Halloween specialties, such as bloody drinks, skull-shaped candies, and milk tea with eyeballs. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Although he knew that these were all Halloween specialties, they looked really scary. Cassandra, what did you want to tell me just now? Ian put a skull candy in his mouth and turned to look at Cassandra. Didn't you notice that Granger was not at the Gryffindor long table? Cassandra motioned Ian to look at the Gryffindor long table. Ian followed Cassandra's line of sight and did not see Hermione next to Harry and Ronald. Ian suddenly panicked, and before he remembered that he had forgotten something important, Cassandra continued. I heard that after class, Weasley said something bad about her, and she heard it, and then Cassandra pursed her lips. Her roommate went to comfort Granger, and she said she wanted to be alone, and now she is crying secretly in the bathroom. Ian couldn't sit still anymore, and immediately stood up, his face extremely flustered. Hermione, he really had too many good days. How could he forget that today is Halloween? Troll. Girls' bathroom. Hermione. Suddenly, the door of the auditorium was violently knocked open, and Professor Quirrell, wearing a purple headscarf, stumbled in. Troll. Basement. There is a troll in the basement. Professor Quirrell no longer stuttered at this time, and spoke very quickly. I think you should know. As soon as he finished speaking, Quirrell rolled his eyes and fainted very simply. The whole auditorium was in chaos in an instant, and the little wizard screamed in panic, almost overturning the ceiling. Calm down, Cassandra. Ian took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Cassandra leaned on Ian's arms with a pale face. Troll. Troll. I'm going to tell my dad. Shut up. Draco. Ian directly hit the platinum head on his left hand. Calm down, too. Draco was a little dazed by Ian's blow and stared at Ian blankly. He hugged Cassandra tightly and comforted her in a soft voice. No, brother, you are too hypocritical, right? Quiet. Dumbledore's loud voice echoed in the hall, and the little wizards quieted down instantly. The prefects of each college will take the students back to the lounge in an orderly manner, and the professors will follow me. Dumbledore's words comforted the little wizards very well, and the prefects also began to organize the students of their own colleges in an orderly manner. Draco, you take the first-year boys to catch up with the main group. Ian arranged everything calmly and looked at Cassandra, who had calmed down. Be careful, Cassandra. After that, Ian prepared to leave the hall. Ian. Cassandra reached out and grabbed Ian's sleeve. Where are you going? Draco also looked worried. Ian, it's dangerous outside. There are trolls. I'm going to find Hermione. Ian answered without hesitation. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Ian shook Cassandra's hand comfortingly. then turned and ran out of the hall. Cassandra looked at Ian's back, clenched her hands, as if trying to control her emotions. Ian walked out of the hall quickly, with a noisy crowd behind him, but he couldn't hear anything, and all he could hear was the sound of his heart beating wildly. Chapter 44. The bathroom and a giant monster. Ian ran through the noisy crowd and headed for the basement of the castle. Just as he was about to reach the girls' bathroom, he suddenly heard a familiar voice coming from the corner. This cry. It's Hermione. Ian's heart tightened, and he quickly quickened his pace and ran over. Turning the corner, Ian saw a tall figure blocking the door of the bathroom, holding a thick wooden stick in his hand. Hermione! Ian! 3 voices sounded at the same time. Ian had no time to care about Harry and the others. He looked at Hermione, hiding under the pool in embarrassment. His eyes were bloodshot. If he hadn't learned the 3 unforgivable curses, he would have given the troll an Avada Kedavra. Disarm you. Obstacles everywhere. Imprison quickly. Petrify everyone. Fall to the ground. Ian unceremoniously threw all the offensive spells he knew at the moment on the troll. The troll is a very stupid creature, but its magic resistance can be said to be full. Ian's magic output and spell level are not much different from scraping. But Ian's attack successfully drew away the troll's hatred. It turned around slowly and hit her with a wooden stick, which gave Hermione a chance to breathe. Ian's expression was solemn, and he dodged quickly, narrowly avoiding the troll's attack. Harry and Ronald were also very anxious, but they didn't know any offensive spells at all, so they could only throw stones at the troll to try to attract his attention. Ian, be careful. Hermione just climbed out from under the pool and saw that the troll's wooden stick was about to hit Ian, and she screamed in fear. Ian rolled sideways and narrowly avoided the troll's attack, but this also made him retreat to the blind spot of the bathroom. Wingardium Leviosa. At the critical moment, Hermione raised her wand and shouted at the troll's stick. The troll's stick instantly floated in the air. It stared at its palm in confusion and didn't care about Ian. Ian took the opportunity to crawl out of the blind spot and controlled the stick to hit the troll's head hard. The troll was hit hard and soon fell to the ground with a loud noise. Seeing the troll fall to the ground, Ian finally breathed a sigh of relief, climbed up and patted the dirt on his body, and then hurried to Hermione. Hermione, how are you? Are you hurt? Hermione's eyes were red, and there were drops of water on her face. She looked very pitiful. I'm fine, Ian. Hermione cried. Why are you here? It's dangerous here. Are you okay? You're here, of course I have to come, Hermione. Ian reached out and hugged Hermione in his arms. Don't worry, I'm fine. Ahem. There were a few coughs next to her, and Hermione suddenly reacted and pushed Ian away, her face flushed. Ian then remembered that there were Harry and Ronald next to him. If the 2 of them didn't say anything, Ian wouldn't remember why Hermione was crying alone here. Thinking of this, Ian's face suddenly darkened. Good, Ronald Weasley. Good boy. But you'll become a dead boy soon. Ronald Weasley. Ian walked a few steps to Ronald and grabbed his collar. If it weren't for you, Hermione wouldn't be in danger. Do you know what Hermione would have faced if I hadn't arrived in time just now? Ronald was frightened by Ian and turned pale. He stammered and apologized. I'm sorry, Ian. I really know I was wrong. I will never do it again. Hermione, I was talking nonsense. You were very good. I was wrong. I shouldn't say that to you. Ronald quickly looked at Hermione, his tone trembling. Harry looked at his furious brother and didn't dare to speak, but quietly moved back. In the end, Hermione couldn't stand it anymore and came over to pull Ian's sleeve. Ian, don't be angry. Ronald already knows he was wrong, and he apologized to me, and I'm not injured. Ian snorted coldly, and because Ronald and the others came to save Hermione, he let go of his collar, but punched Ronald hard on the right cheek. Ronald was knocked to the ground by Ian's punch, covering his face and groaning in pain. My punch is to teach you to respect others, especially your friends. If you say disrespectful words to Hermione again, I will let you know why the flowers are so red. Ronald covered his rapidly swollen cheeks and nodded repeatedly, not daring to say a word. Harry swallowed his saliva. He was extremely glad that he didn't say bad things about Hermione at this moment. Otherwise, Even if he was Ian's biological brother, he would probably not be able to escape this punch. After hitting Ronald, Ian pulled him up from the ground again. "Shut up. It doesn't hurt that much." Ian turned his head to look at Harry again, and Harry shrank his neck suddenly. "Why are you so scared?" Ian looked at Harry strangely. Harry silently looked at Ronald, who was covering his face. "I was afraid that you would go crazy and punch me too." "Oh, my God. What's going on?" "The four of you." Professor McGonagall suddenly walked into the bathroom, followed by several other professors, Cassandra and Draco. "Can anyone tell me what happened here?" Professor McGonagall looked at the giant monster lying on the ground with shock and anger, and then looked at Ian and the other four. Ian stood up. "Professor..." Before Ian could say anything, Professor Snape, who was standing at the end, suddenly changed his expression, walked quickly to Ian, and held his scratched wrist. Ian subconsciously wanted to shake it off, but he didn't expect that Professor Snape looked thin, but the strength in his hand was not small at all. "Don't move." Professor Snape's face was gloomy. He carefully checked Ian's injuries and found that it was just a minor scratch. His face looked better. He took out a small medicine bottle from his arms and poured some on Ian's wound. As soon as the medicine was applied, Ian felt a coolness, and the originally burning wound was instantly relieved. "Thank you, Professor." Ian pointed at the other three people. "Hermione and the others are also injured. Please give them some medicine." Professor Snape's face darkened again in an instant. "Don't they have hands?" After saying that, Professor Snape stuffed the bottle of medicine into Ian's arms, turned around and walked aside, hugged his chest, and stared at them coldly. Ian's mouth twitched, and after carefully applying the medicine to Hermione, he handed the bottle of medicine to Harry and the others. "Okay, now, can you tell me what happened?" Professor McGonagall looked at the four people seriously. "If it weren't for Miss Wally and Mr. Malfoy worrying about you and finding us in time, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to find this place in time." "Sorry, Professor." Ian simply told the story again, without exaggerating the facts or deliberately discrediting anyone. Although it was simple, the professors also understood what happened. Professor McGonagall looked at Ronald with a sullen face. "Mr. Weasley, because of your unfriendly behavior, Gryffindor will be deducted 10 points. I hope you can remember today's lesson. As for you guys..." Professor McGonagall paused and continued. "You can defeat the troll in the first year and survive. Each of you will get 20 points. You are really lucky to be alive." Professor McGonagall said this and glared at Ronald again. "Mr. Malfoy and Miss Ward will also get 10 points each because they found the professor in time." Cassandra's face was expressionless, as if it didn't matter to her whether to get points or not. And Draco looked proud and raised his chin to Ian. Ian rolled his eyes and ignored him. After Professor McGonagall dealt with the troll, he left with other professors. Before leaving, Professor Snape looked deeply at the Potter brothers. The brothers shuddered when Professor Snape looked at them. Harry muttered quietly, "What's wrong with Professor Snape? Why is he looking at us like that? Maybe he's jealous of how handsome we are." Ian replied casually. "Harry." Chapter 45, Cassandra. If it were me after the professors left, they all gathered in Dumbledore's office to report to him about the troll. "I think we should strengthen the castle's defenses." Professor McGonagall frowned and said, "It's too dangerous for the children." "Minerva, are those children okay?" Dumbledore asked. Professor McGonagall softened his tone. "Except for Miss Wally and Mr. Malfoy. The others had some scratches, but they have all been healed by Severus." Snape snorted with an ugly expression. "Who is willing to treat a group of little trolls who are rushing to die?" "Severus, we must be patient with the children." Dumbledore smiled gently, and they did a good job, didn't they? "That's right. Merlin's big socks." Professor Flitwick's tone became excited. "I just looked at the traces of spells on the trolls. The first-year wizards can use those offensive spells so quickly and skillfully. Incredible. Incredible." Dumbledore still had a kind smile on his face. "Oh, is it Ian?" "Yes. Ian Potter can use the levitation spell and the transformation spell so skillfully. It's amazing. He is definitely a genius." Professor Flitwick did not hesitate to praise. Professor Snape's face was still gloomy. "Genius?" In order to save his friend, He impulsively ran to fight the troll. If he wasn't lucky, he would have died long ago. He knew it. This child shouldn't be allowed to stay with Harry Potter. It's only been 2 months. He has become as impulsive as Gryffindor. How can he still be a Slytherin? Severus, you can't deny Ian's courage and wisdom, Dumbledore said. In a critical moment, he can think calmly, use his knowledge, and bravely protect his friends. This is very rare. Professor Snape snorted coldly and said nothing. Well, now the more important thing is how the troll got in. Dumbledore changed the subject. The troll is stupid. He definitely won't break in suddenly. Someone deliberately let him into Hogwarts. Snape said coldly, I will find out about this matter. Dumbledore sighed and suddenly asked, by the way, where is Quirinus? Professor Quirrell is dealing with the troll in the basement. Professor McGonagall replied. He said he would check the troll to see if he could find any clues. Okay, that's it for now. You can go back first. Dumbledore waved his hand. The professors left one after another, and only Professor Snape stood there with an angry face. Dumbledore, do you know that if that child was not strong enough, he would be a cold corpse now, including those little trolls? Severus, Ian and Harry are the key to dealing with Voldemort. Maybe you should try to let go instead of treating them as flowers in a greenhouse. Dumbledore said softly, and you should believe in Ian. He is a smart child. You can't understand it all. If the two of them died in front of me, it would be... Snape shouted this sentence angrily, but stopped abruptly. He seemed to have been paused. His face twisted for a few times, and finally glared at Dumbledore fiercely, swaying his robe and striding away. Watching his departing back, Dumbledore sighed softly. At the same time, Ian and the others had already returned to their respective colleges. In the Slytherin common room, Ian was lazily lying on the sofa, listening to Draco praising him with an admiring look on his face. Ian, you are really amazing. You can actually defeat a troll. So cool. I will write a letter to tell my parents. Ian rolled his eyes. You've said this many times. Come on, you're really awesome. First grade. First grade, Draco said as if it was a matter of course. Besides, you're my friend Malfoy. My friend is a hero. Okay, Draco, stop flattering Ian. Aren't you sleepy? Cassandra looked at Draco faintly. Draco was about to say, I'm not sleepy, but when he saw Cassandra's emotionless light green eyes, he nodded quickly. Oh yes, I'm sleepy. Good night, Ian, Cassandra, Draco said, and ran back to the dormitory at a very fast speed. In the common room, only Ian and Cassandra were left. You should go back to the dormitory and sleep, Cassandra. Ian avoided the gaze of those green eyes with a guilty conscience. He begged Cassandra not to cry. Otherwise, he would have to coax the eldest lady after coaxing Hermione. Cassandra did not move. She looked at Ian steadily. Her eyes gradually reddened. Ian Potter, have you ever thought that if you had not fought the troll, you would not be standing here now? Cassandra, Ian hurriedly wiped the tears for the little witch. Cassandra threw herself into Ian's arms and sobbed softly. I was very scared on the way there. I was afraid that I would see your body. Fortunately, you are still alive. Ian gently patted Cassandra's back, saying gently, Don't cry, I'm fine, right? If you're going to do something, don't leave me behind again. Don't take risks alone. Cassandra raised her head from Ian's arms, her eyes red, and her tone overbearing. Ian Potter promises there won't be a next time. Ian raised 3 fingers without blushing. I swear to God. Anyway, he is a wizard, not God's control. He is Merlin's control. Cassandra didn't think too much, and when she saw Ian swear, her uneasy heart was slightly calmed. Okay, it's late. It's time to go to bed. Ian gently kissed Cassandra on the forehead. Good night. Have a good dream, Cassandra. Cassandra blushed slightly, whispered good night, and walked quickly to the entrance of the girls' dormitory on the right. Just as she touched the door handle, Cassandra seemed to remember something and turned to look at Ian. If it were me, would you do the same? Ian knew what she meant and nodded without hesitation. Yes. Cassandra laughed. This time, it was a smile from the heart that Ian had never seen before. The little witch's smile made Ian's heart skip a beat, and Ian didn't come back to his senses until Cassandra's figure disappeared at the door of the dormitory. He touched his chest, where his heart was beating a little faster. Ian shook his head. He was such a jerk, but he shouldn't be the first man to be attracted to two girls, right? With a little inexplicable feeling of guilt, Ian returned to the dormitory. Chapter 46. Cassandra has a long future ahead of her the next day. Ian appeared at the Slytherin table with a pair of black eyes. Ian, you really beat the troll. This is so. Theodore stopped praising him halfway. He looked at Ian with a worried look on his face. Prefect, are you okay? Didn't you sleep well? Why are you so dark circles? Is it obvious? Ian touched his eyes, where there was a dark circle. Very obvious. You look like you went to steal last night. Blaise nodded sincerely. What? Ian, you went to steal last night? Draco, who was halfway listening, turned his head and looked at Ian in surprise. They were in the same dormitory. How could he not know that Ian went to steal in the middle of the night? What thief? I just didn't sleep well last night. Ian rolled his eyes and said unhappily. He did not sleep well last night, but he did not go to steal, but dreamed. He first dreamed of Hermione. The little girl looked at him with an accusing look on her face, saying that she had come first. So why did he give his heart to another girl? Ian was about to explain, but the scene suddenly changed, and Cassandra appeared in his dream again. The eldest lady also had an accusing look on her face, saying that Ian was a liar, and he kissed her, but he didn't dare to admit that he liked her. Ian's mouth was almost dry, and he didn't coax the two of them. He also caused Hermione and Cassandra to give him a Vada bite Big Melon together, which scared him awake. After waking up, Ian couldn't sleep no matter how hard he tried, and appeared in the restaurant with a pair of panda eyes. Oh, you really shouldn't have slept well. You are the hero who defeated the troll. Draco looked proud. Ian, thank you, but can you not mention this title? It's very shameful, okay? I'm just thinking about life. Ian yawned. After he woke up last night, he had been thinking about how to make Hermione and Cassandra live in peace. After all, if the harem is well managed, then it is sure Tao, and if it is not well managed, then it will become a Kodo, being killed by his own girlfriend. Ian shuddered subconsciously. He didn't want to die so early. Isn't there a Quidditch match this afternoon? Have you practiced? Ian changed the subject and mentioned the afternoon match. Don't worry, I will fight too. Draco patted his chest confidently. That's fine. Ian nodded and saw a sneaky figure in his peripheral vision. It was Professor Quirrell. He looked around with fear on his face, as if he was afraid of something. Ian frowned imperceptibly. Quidditch match. In the original plot line, Quirrell should have thought about killing Harry. TSK. Now, there is one more. There is no need to think too much. Voldemort must want to catch them all in one fell swoop. After all, no one wants to face two difficult saviors after resurrection. Thinking of this, Ian's eyes darkened. It seems that when he is in the second year, he should go to his dear Tom to learn more about black magic to make up for the loss brought to him by Voldemort. Ian. Draco stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Ian's eyes. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Ian came back to his senses and shook his head. I'm thinking about the troll from yesterday. Do you want to beat him again? Draco clapped his hands in sudden realization. I know. You must want everyone to see your strength with their own eyes, right? I understand you. Ian's mouth twitched. You know shit. What I mean is that the troll must have been deliberately let in by someone. There must be a conspiracy. Draco's expression froze. Okay, it seems to be true. So, we have to be careful. Ian looked at Professor Quirrell in the teacher's seat with a hint of meaning. I always feel that someone wants to harm me. Draco echoed. That's right. Ian, you are right. I will be careful. Ian nodded and yawned again. I've finished eating. I'm so sleepy, I'll go back and take a nap first. See you at the game in the afternoon. After saying that, Ian stood up, stretched, and left the restaurant. He really should catch up on his sleep. Otherwise, he would not have the energy to deal with emergencies in the Quidditch match in the afternoon. Cassandra had been shy and did not dare to look at Ian. Now that she saw him leaving, she immediately raised her head and looked at Ian's back. She pursed her lips, stood up, and walked quickly to the door of the restaurant in the surprised eyes of everyone. Cassandra, where are you going? Pansy frowned and asked hurriedly. I'll go out for a while. and be back soon," Cassandra said without turning her head. She walked out of the restaurant quickly and saw Ian, who was not far away. "Ian." Cassandra's trot turned into a jog and walked to Ian. "Huh? Cassandra? Why are you out too?" Ian turned his head and looked at the girl next to him with some surprise. I also want to go back to catch up on my sleep." Cassandra lit. She couldn't say that she came out because of Ian. Ian nodded without thinking. "Okay, let's go together." Cassandra smiled and said nothing and walked back to Slytherin side by side with Ian. The two did not speak along the way, but they did not seem awkward at all. Instead, there was a strange atmosphere between them. Ian glanced at Cassandra from time to time, wanting to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. Cassandra's cheeks were slightly red, and her hands were twisted together nervously. She was also hesitating whether to ask Ian about the kiss and their relationship. In the end, Ian took the lead in breaking the silence. "Will you come to watch my game this afternoon, Cassandra?" Ian touched his nose. He actually knew that Cassandra didn't like Quidditch. After all, she always felt that this sport was violent and inelegant. Cassandra was stunned for a moment, subconsciously raised her head, and met Ian's deep eyes. She clearly saw her shy and expectant expression. At this moment, Cassandra suddenly didn't want to worry about so much anymore. She raised her head slightly, looked at Ian, and said seriously, "Ian, I will go to see it. I just want to cheer you up." Hearing the girl's serious answer, Ian chuckled. "Well, I will also work hard. Cheer for me, for the young lady." Cassandra's cheeks became redder. She opened her mouth, wanted to say something, but felt that nothing she said was enough to express her feelings. So, she raised her hand, gently grabbed Ian's sleeve, and nodded slightly. Ian was stunned for a moment. Looking at the shy but firm expression of the girl, his heart moved slightly. But when he thought of his age, Ian put down the throbbing in his heart again. He raised his hand, gently covered the back of Cassandra's hand, and smiled gently. "Let's go, young lady. I'll take you back to the dormitory." Cassandra's cheeks were red, but she didn't refuse. She nodded gently and let Ian lead her to the Slytherin girls' dormitory. The two of them were silent all the way, but the atmosphere was more ambiguous than before. Ian sent Cassandra to the door of the girls' dormitory before stopping. "I'm here, Ian." Cassandra pursed her lips and said softly, "Yeah, I know." Ian smiled and let go of Cassandra's hand. "See you in the afternoon, Mississippi." After that, Ian turned and left, leaving Cassandra standing alone, looking at his back with red cheeks. Cassandra didn't look away until Ian's figure completely disappeared around the corner and turned to walk into the dormitory. She lay on the bed, looking at the ceiling with a sweet smile on her lips. "Ian, there's a long way to go." Chapter 47 Quidditch match in the afternoon. Ian and other members of the team came to the Quidditch field early. They had just changed their clothes in the locker room when they heard loud cheers from outside. "It seems that there are a lot of people today," Marcus said while sorting out his protective gear. "Many girls are here for Potter." Lucy and Bowl nodded in Ian's direction. "What? For me?" Ian subconsciously replied. "What am I here for?" Draco was surprised. "Ian, don't you know that many girls regard you as the school idol of Hogwarts? When did this happen?" Ian's mouth twitched. He really didn't know about this. "Recently," Chloe Foley, the only girl on the team, said with a smile. "I heard that even the good girls of Ravenclaw are secretly discussing you in the dormitory every day." Draco nodded enviously. "Those girls said you are more handsome than Cedric Diggory of Hufflepuff." Ian was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. "Okay, stop talking. It's time to go on stage." Marcus clapped his hands and interrupted the conversation of several people. "Remember, we are Slytherin. We can't lose." For Slytherin, everyone shouted in unison and then walked out of the locker room together. Ian followed behind everyone, but he didn't feel much nervous. He looked up at the Gryffindor audience, and, as expected, he saw Hermione holding a Go Ian banner in her hand. Ian turned his head and looked at the Slytherin audience. Cassandra was sitting there, staring at him closely. Ian chuckled and waved to Hermione and Cassandra. Hermione also saw Ian. Her eyes lit up, and she also waved to Ian. Cassandra smiled with pursed lips and looked at Ian gently. "Ian, what are you looking at?" Draco followed Ian's gaze and exclaimed, "Wow, Ian, You are so lucky. Ian retracted his gaze and patted Draco on the back of his head in annoyance. Don't talk nonsense. What would happen if the two little witches heard this? Draco covered the back of his head, looking aggrieved. I'm not wrong. So many girls like you, of course you were so lucky.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.